Hello, hello. Hey, Stilling. So we are going to continue what we started on Monday. I had to think of what day it was. Yeah, so on Monday, no audio. Good morning. No one typed, "Hey guys, why are you commencing stream?" That's right. I'm violating the rules. Yeah, so we're gonna continue what we started on Monday. I will give some brief background for anyone who's watching this as a VOD, which is probably very few people, or anyone who just tuned in now who's new to the stream, which again, very few people. But the goal was to make replayable content in the game. And I had three general ideas for this. They were make the current town infinite, so you play one thing the entire time. Another would be to make custom challenge modes, like farming mode, and this would be something where you focus on the farm, you play through the whole game again, but then that's it. There'd just be a few of these modes and we'd have to keep adding modes. And then the other would be like a make a new mode where you can replay that a bunch. These are distinct ideas. They might not sound like it. Anyway, this is what we ended up deciding on. It's a bit of a departure from what the game already is, because the game starts as a cozy, can't lose, turn your brain off game. And then this challenge mode it's called challenge mode for a reason. It's a bit more difficult. It's got some restrictions and it's got some randomization in it. So that's what we need to work on, is figuring out what are all the parameters of this. And I've got a million questions that are there to be answered. So let's take a look. Yeah, so I made a new document for this and I spent some time yesterday thinking about new questions here. Let's start. So is spending gold on random perks? You know what we're going to do too? I'm going to just open two of these tabs. I'm so sick of trying to bounce back and forth by doing this and not being possible because I'm not doing the right thing. Okay, so yeah, let's put that there. Is spending gold on random perks the most fun or interesting way to do this? Maybe quest should be the way you do this. Turn in 3 potions, get your first choice. Turn in 7 cloaks, get your second choice, etc. I kind of answered this already. I think gold does make the most sense since you'd have otherwise very little need for it. And that this sort of overloads gold. I wrote, should you be able to spend money to steer the perks? A perk costs you 50, but you can steer it toward another one. So in general, I do think this should cost money. It makes sense that there are only 2 currencies in the game. So I guess one of the questions that I might have after this is, what is the tavern all about? How does the tavern work if it's just for new workers now, but you may get those through perks and you could manually do everything if you wanted? I think we may need to change the balance of the game such that you have 1 to 2 workers by default and you're expected to get a bunch. Is it a problem that quests take time instead of money? Should the tavern even exist? Like, is it fun in this new mode? I got to think about that. And we also, one of the guiding principles of all of this stuff that we're doing here is I want to come up with what we're doing for V1. It doesn't need to be the final iteration of this. And yet I also don't want to spend forever making new code. So I think this should cost money. There are only 2 currencies in the game. There's already pressure / balance around gold. Yeah, as for steering the perks, we could have reroll options or something. But in general, you should be able to outright buy stuff. I wonder how that should work. We could maybe change, maybe the tavern could be a way of getting a specific perk. You set a perk as a goal. Not sure that's fun either though, because there are only so many items you could get at any time. So it's a minimal cost. So yeah, costing money I think is fine. I think we have a bunch of tavern questions after this though. gold does make the most sense. Should you be able to spend money to steal the perks? Okay. Yeah, let's write this down. I should just make a design section where I've settled on this stuff. Perks cost gold to unlock. Rationale, the whole game is already set up around spending gold. So and we need a gold sink. And yeah. And this makes sense for a V1. And I don't think it's too controversial or anything. So yeah, in general, I think this sounds pretty good. Perks cost gold to unlock. And then maybe I'll write this down for afterward. That's a question. Should you just click a buy perk thing? I can't help but think, like, what does Slay the Spire do? Because talk about roguelikification, it's a roguelike game from the get-go. And if you think about, like, how do you acquire cards, relics, and potions? I think those are the 3 things you can get, right? Yeah, I don't think there's anything else in the game as far as items go. Yeah, so just those. So cards are after every battle and some events and the shop. Relics are after elite or boss battles, some events, and the shop. And potions are after some battles, some events, and the shop. And that's it. That's how all of this works. So basically, the only thing that happens after every battle is you get a card choice. That's guaranteed, I think. But in general, you are presented with either here's your reward and it's not even random, and then you build around this thing, or you can choose it. So potions, for example, are just given to you without a choice after some battles. Cards are always given to you with a choice. No, not always, or almost always, I guess, of which one you want. And relics are usually a choice. And then there are some like risk reward things you can do. What do we add for risk reward in the game? There should probably be optional content that you can choose to do, but maybe you don't complete it, or it costs you a lot to attempt. Yeah, the reason I bring this up is because what I was thinking of for Skeleseller is you just have a spend X gold and then get a choice of 3 perks. And then on top of that, there could be spend maybe like 3x gold and get a specific perk. And I want to see if that makes sense for this. Because right now in the game already, you can already get something like worker speed. Worker speed costs, I don't know, 50 gold. So to unlock that specific thing, if you decide this is the most important thing for you, it probably shouldn't cost the same as whatever a choice of 3 perks would cost. It should probably cost like triple, quintuple, because you're steering it toward the thing you know that you want. And that's sort of like what happened in Slay the Spire with shops. You could get the exact card you want, maybe, and you'd see the cost for it, but it would only be a choice at that moment, and you'd have to prepare for it. It almost makes me wonder if Wisdom Sludge should be repurposed to something completely different. Maybe Wisdom Sludge should, or well, not maybe, should Wisdom Sludge unlock its own set of perks? Maybe it's for leveling up adventurers, and you can either randomly level one up or spend more on a specific one. Hang on one second. Let me close this a little bit. I want to see how much that changes the lighting. Do I still look like a human, or do I look like a vampire? I think it's fine. Oh man. Yeah, okay. So design. You can also spend gold on, I guess random perks cost gold. You can also spend gold on specific perks. Rationale, you may not always get the perk that you want. Building that you want. So, and sometimes the game will be incredibly difficult without that perk slash building. E.g., imagine not having the warehouse and getting tons of items. Not having the warehouse or garbage slime and getting tons of items. You wouldn't really be able to do anything. So maybe we need to think about building unlock order too. Is there a better way of handling buildings? All of them are pretty much necessary. So having you spend a lot of money or get lucky with random choices seems a bit weird. Still haven't figured that out yet. We'll need to do that. Let's also do this as long as I'm going to be... Yeah, there. Specific perks. Yeah, we really got to look over this with a fine-tooth comb when all this is said and done. All right, let's go to the next question. I'm not settled on this stuff yet. Like, at the end of the day, we're putting in a mode that it can make sense and it can be fun, but will it be lasting fun? And there's probably some perfect formulation of this. And yeah, we just got to keep poking at it, I guess. Is whatever we design compelling enough for a V1? Okay, so this is like final questions, I guess we ask. Final questions. So the being fun enough for a V1. What else do we have? There should be something else that we have here. Or do they feel different? What are you doing as a player? Can we simplify anything? Is it fun? Does it sound fun? Is this the kind of thing I could see YouTubers sinking a bunch of time into? And then I guess the changing any other assumptions we have. Yeah, so those are questions we can only really answer once we've done everything else. All right, are any perks incompatible? Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. And this thing about simplified, this is lumped into this. I'm just going to copy paste it anyway. Test confirmed. Hey, Spirited Away. Thanks for joining on stream. I don't know if you saw the Discord message about the overview of this challenge mode thing, which, by the way, I think I mentioned it would be called chaos mode, but I realized that's a dumb idea. I should call it challenge mode. But this is what we're going to spend all day talking about. Hey, Civi. And I am hoping there's something good here. I want to do what's best for the game. I want it to be replayable. And yet I don't want to have people... Like, here's one of the risks that we have. The main mode is going to be about 5 hours of content. And then after that, we're like, oh, now the game's a roguelike game. Imagine then on Steam that you come across this game and you're like, okay, I like the graphics, I like the idea of the game, and you see a tag there that says roguelike. Then you download the game, and for the first like 3 to 4 hours, you're like, why did they mention roguelike? How did Steam not flag this as wrong? So that on its own is already a little bit weird to me. And I don't know if that's going to be a problem. Is there a problem with tagging the game as a roguelike on Steam if that content only comes out after like 5 hours of gameplay? How would we help set expectations for this? Yeah. Okay, well, anyway, next question is, should perks level up? Honestly, I don't think we know enough yet to be able to say this, so let's bump this down the list. I will tackle this, but just it won't be one of the final questions. We'll put it before, like, questions I had to bump, because we need to answer other stuff first. All right, so what can we answer next? Maybe we should just tackle that tavern thing. how does the tavern work? Is it just for new workers? How do you hire adventurers? How do you handle buildings at all? Yeah. And I even wrote this for things like the treasure room. How does the treasure room work? It doesn't do much until you get weapons. I feel like there's room for synergies and everything. Oh man. Yeah, my gut feeling right now is negative. Hopefully after answering these questions it goes a little bit more positive. Hey Nazmer. So I'm pretty new and looking at the game thinking on something. As a shop keeps setting gear quests to sell, how would roguelike elements come into play for that? So let me give you the rundown of this because I wrote a little summary at the top. Here's the overview of the game mode. I'm not going to have you read all this necessarily, but the main mode is going to be about 5 hours. So for this mode, we call challenge mode, we're going to condense it into like 1 hour. So you're going to make it through the game in 1 hour's time. There's going to be some goal. I don't know what it is exactly. Maybe it's beat the final boss. Maybe it's get to 10,000 gold or something like that. But there's some goal. You know what that goal is. You can fail at the goal, and it's limited to a certain amount of time, basically. This will be a difficult mode compared to the main one. You will eventually add on more and more difficulty as you keep playing through this since it's intended for replayability. The progression that you do, this is the roguelike part of this, is going to be presented through random choices. So imagine something like you get a choice that says build the farm or hire the mage or level up the rogue. So you're presented with these three options and you're like, oh man, I need to get another adventurer here. That's what's really struggling. So you choose that one. And now you have the mage and now your battles are going a little bit faster and you're getting more gold. Then you're like, okay, they need to be leveled up. You might be able to get a straight up level up for one of your characters, but maybe you build the farm and now you can start leveling up all of your adventurers. So this way, each playthrough you do is going to be a little bit different. And I think it can still make sense in the Skeleseller world of like these random choices are working toward your main goal. But yeah, there's a lot to still reconcile here. But that's the general idea. So yeah, I think the next thing we need to do is talk about buildings and everything. So my sort of general thought for right now is the main game is very linear. At any given time, you're fighting in say 3 locations. You're always leveling up, hiring new adventurers, and making everything better. For your roguelike choices to matter, each thing you do has to have an impact. And you need to understand that impact and see it play out. You probably also want to have different ways to achieve a goal. Even if the goal is just to defeat the final boss. So there are some board games, and maybe even Civilization plays this way. I've never played Civilization, but there are different overall objectives. Imagine something like an economy win versus a science win versus a warfare win or something. Each of these is like, I don't know, in Skeleseller terms, it'd be like get 10k gold. Science win, I don't know what this would be, unlock 40 perks or something. And warfare win would be like beat the final boss. And maybe you get to pick which one of these is the most reasonable goal based on what your perks have been steering you toward. Again, it's very hard to tell if this stuff's going to be fun though on paper. So imagine if every time you play, it's just like, well, getting 10,000 gold is actually just the best thing to do because now you don't even have to battle in further locations. Should the game modify itself in negative ways as you play? E.g., maybe for some portion of time, small blue potions are worth nothing to encourage you to change things up. I'm not sure this is that interesting, but the main goal here would be to further steer your decision making. I think just setting their... It's simplest to just have one objective. And the most obvious is beat the final boss. However, I kind of like the idea of it being an economy objective. Yeah, what does winning look like? Is it just to beat the last boss? I like the idea of there just being one objective, but having the objective be get X gold is very enticing to me because the game is based on selling and it's only the main game that's based on beating a boss. Yeah, I kind of like that. We call it like Gold Rush mode or something. It's not really, we're not going to change the name of the mode, but we call the objective Gold Rush. And yeah, this one's get 10,000 gold. You're like, okay, that's cool. So every potion you sell is getting you closer to that goal. And it's a more direct correlation. Also, that means that spending your gold is getting you farther from the goal. That's also kind of interesting. There's tension then anytime you spend gold. It will increase the rate. Well, it will almost certainly. It doesn't necessarily increase the rate at which you get gold, but it will push you farther from the goal. Although this is a little bit risky. So imagine if you did say your goal is collect 10,000 gold and you're at, I don't know, 5,000. If there's a time limit, then you would know how long, or you'd probably know how long it's going to take you to get the next 5,000. Will take, let's say, 5 minutes. So at that point, if you're like, well, I'm just leaving the game for 5 minutes, that's not fun. On the other hand, if you knew it wasn't going to be fast enough, now you spend money and you go down to 4,000 and hope that it accelerated you enough to get to 10,000 soon. So we could make it a cumulative gold total. Could just have it be a cumulative gold total. That way you can spend freely and not have to idle around. I think this makes the most sense. Yeah. And that this way too, if you choose to fight a boss and it drops an item worth like 500 gold, that's your risk and reward. You don't have to beat that boss. But by beating it, you might get extra money. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, I think I like that idea. I think I'm going to write that down. Okay, so objective. The objective, the win condition is to get is to acquire X gold cumulatively. Rationale for this is there are, I guess one is the game is called Skeleseller, so this is fitting. There are multiple ways to go about getting money. But if the objective were to beat a boss, then there's only one way to do that. Battling. By having it be cumulative, you're not afraid of spending money. Imagine a scenario where you have half X already and know that you'll get the remaining gold in 5 minutes. You just sit around, which would be boring. All right, I like that quite a lot. So what is this? What does winning look like? Easiest balance is to keep it simple. All systems already feed into battling, so maybe just the last boss. I wrote all systems feed into battling, but all systems actually feed into selling. They're just two different ways of looking at this. Battling is actually not the end all be all here. Well, it kind of is, because that's the only way I guess you produce items. But it's for the sake of selling. Hey, I mean, new to this coding thing. I'm in high school and I follow economics and I really want to be a software engineer, but I'm afraid I don't have the knowledge for it. How do I start? And with what do I start? So I've got my own little blog post I made here on learning programming. I suggest reading this. The short story is, I don't think it matters too much where you start. I think what matters more is, are you having fun and are you learning? If these things are true, then they're going to carry you through what's going to be a multi-year long journey. So you're not going to learn coding in 2 hours. You're going to start to learn coding in 2 hours. And then you're not going to master coding in 1 year. You're going to spend many years mastering it. And AI is changing things too. But still, I would say to read that post and kind of see if that helps. As far as being afraid you don't have the knowledge, I think it's more about maybe like attention span and discipline and interest. I think these three things. So if I were to go start knitting, for example, I've never knit anything in my life. So I currently don't have the knowledge, but I'm not worried that I wouldn't be able to get that knowledge. I trust in how I learn things well enough, and I don't think the skills are that, far out for what I'm doing. I'm not going to get into like speed knitting or competitive knitting or something. It's just like, yeah, I could go learn this. I think it's the same thing with coding. For you to be able to type a coherent message in a Twitch chat probably means you have like an IQ high enough that this isn't going to be an impossibility. I think there are probably people out there who it's just impossible for them to either learn new things or learn coding specifically. But in general, if you've got basic math and logic, you can learn it. And it's just a question of, do you want to learn it? You might try it and realize you hate it. And then, yeah, maybe the rest of the questions are kind of moot after that. Going to build a calc on Python and a to-do list. I know the variables or the rest. I don't know. Yeah, that's all stuff you can learn though. I mean, think about it this way. At some point, you didn't even know how to add two numbers together. And then you learned how to add and you didn't know how to multiply two numbers. And then you learned how to multiply, but you didn't know how to do a derivative. You just kept building on the knowledge you already had. That's exactly how programming works too. You don't just jump right to, I'm going to go make Facebook or I'm going to make World of Warcraft. All right, I like the idea of there just being one objective. Yeah, I think this is good to, I want to write that down. Where's the design for this? By only having one objective, we can focus your decision tree elsewhere. Also, every system already feeds into selling in some way. Gold is always relevant. Yeah, that. Yeah, and good luck, I mean. Hey, Ciela. Also find your niche of interest, build an application on the web, participate in game jam. Yeah, that's another nice thing too, right? Coding is not just coding. It's like saying you just learn English and now you know a language. It's like, did you learn that language to speak? Did you learn it to do public speaking? Did you learn it to write? Did you learn it to do poetry? Did you learn it to do whatever other things, right? Documentation for things. So it's the same thing with a coding language. It's like you could apply it to games, you could apply it to the web, tooling, embedded engineering. You could do robotics. There's just a million different ways you can apply it. So coding in itself is just like a human language. On its own, it does nothing, right? You need to communicate with something else. Okay, so we answered the wait. Yeah, I didn't cut this out. What else? Attention anytime you spend gold. Can you keep playing after? This is not super important. Yeah, I don't really. Yeah, I'll even write this down. After winning or losing, the game will end. Rationale, I had thought about whether you should be able to continue playing after winning, but I think it's best to keep it simple. All right, so now we got to delete that from the list. Yep, that. Okay, so tavern, buildings, etc. Let's try to think about this. And then adventures are going to be difficult too. So how should buildings work? And here are the parameters of this. All of them are helpful. No, wait, not just helpful. All of them are pretty much necessary. All of them are essentially necessary, although not exactly. Like, without the farm, you can't level up. Well, unless you get a random perk. Without the tavern, you can't get new workers. Without a shop, you can't sell certain items. Without the warehouse, you can't store extra items. Without the garbage slime, you can't get rid of extra items. And so the exceptions to this are either the farm or the pond. They both help you level up. The enchanter just speeds things up. Actually, it'd be kind of cool if the enchanter just gave you a random spell at the beginning. I guess you're just clicking that every time you can. But yeah, almost every building is necessary in the game. So why would we have you choose to get them? We should probably have you choose when you get them, given that they're practically necessary. So let's look at this again. We have shop, shop, shop. They're all dedicated. So if you found armors and you didn't have this, I guess you could technically still sell things or still get money at the garbage slime. Trying to find synergies between classes is very fun. Witch Doctor is so good. Yeah, some of the classes are overpowered. And as I think I mentioned to you in a DM that there are 3 new adventures that we added for the playtest version. There's the Spirit Caller, the Golem, and then this Mushroom character. And the Mushroom character has the most skills out of all of them. But then the other ones are they're very interesting. I really like the class designs, and it actually makes me want to go back and fix some of the old classes and make them a little bit better. But yeah, you got to figure out the balance of that. So if they're absolutely necessary, then we shouldn't let the player play for too long without them. It should mostly be a question of when you get that thing. Big fan. Oh, you tried out the new ones. Yeah. Yeah. The Golem, I think, like I said, I really like the ideas of all of these. The Mushroom character, I don't know, just being based around dying is something you can't really do in a manually played game because dying is essentially the same as being stunned. And being stunned in a game means you lose agency. But in an automated game, it's kind of cool that a character is expected to die like 4 or 5 times in a battle. And yeah, the Spirit Caller having a bunch of different summons you can choose to invest in. I like that idea too for this. I like that a lot. Shouldn't let the player play for too long without them. Should mostly be a question of when you get that thing. So I do think it would be fun to change the order a bit. In some cases, yeah, I think like most players may want to prioritize a particular thing themselves. So I think my general conclusion so far are players should have some freedom here in terms of the build order. And players shouldn't be able, or pretty much like players should be able to get a building when they want. So here's an example system that will accommodate this. All buildings cost X. Buying any building raises X. That's it. That's as simple as it could be, right? So your first building is 25 gold. And then your next building is, I'm just making up a number, 75 gold, and so on and so forth. So like if you want the farm first in your run, just build the farm. It's always going to cost you 25. You can count on that. But now your next thing that you get is going to cost more. So knowing that you're going to need the shop eventually, like the armor shop, maybe you want to get that first, or maybe you, I don't know. Anyway, this is one system that'll do this. I think this has its own pros and cons. Does position matter? No, it doesn't. Yeah. What do I specialize in? I've been doing game dev for a while, but I also did a lot of web dev. So I'd say like games and web. But in general, I would say that I'm not really a specialist in things and I'm more of a generalist programmer. I've done a lot of different things, but I like games. And actually, if you are pretty good at a lot of different things, games are pretty good to go into because games encapsulate practically everything, right? Think of any game that you played and now imagine making it. You have to make any like core systems, any sort of multiplayer functionality that might exist, any like storage of that data, serialization, save system, something like that, any sorts of like audio related stuff, graphics related stuff, so on and so forth. There's like a million things you could split this into, any animations. So you could choose to work on all of that or sort of outsource some of it. Do I work at a thing? No, this is my sole thing that I'm doing right now. Let the player play for too long without them. It should be a question of when you get that thing. So this is, here's some, let's write some example systems here. Systems that could work. So one is increase cost every time you buy something. So this is the rules, I guess, of this system. And pros and cons, cons. I guess the pros of this, cons is like runs may feel a bit stale. Let me write another system, is like buildings are offered occasionally. So you're guaranteed to get most buildings by the X minute mark. Pros of this, still lets you, I don't know what the pros are. I guess it's easy to understand. Runs may feel a bit stale if you can always get some building first. Yeah. How's working at Google? Yeah, sorry, the command doesn't work with a capital C. I should probably change that. Hey Patrick. It's my dream to work in a big company like Google. So yeah, I've got the Google command there that goes into detail about this. I'll say this to save you a little bit of time. If your dream is to work at a big company, you will probably like it a lot more than I did. My dream was not to work at a big company. My dream was to have a job. And yeah, I've worked at big companies before, and I just generally don't like the experience. But so the people who tend to do well there are, I'd say, like career-oriented people, as in people who want to climb the ladder, and people who want a lot of impact without creating it themselves. This is not meant to be derogatory, by the way. Imagine you work on Chrome. Chrome is used by millions of people. So if you want to work on a product used by millions of people, it's easier to work on Chrome than it is to make a product that then you find a million people to go use. So yeah, having global impact on these products, like imagine you work on whatever, anything, Facebook or Instagram or yeah, any Mac OS, anything that's used by tons and tons of people. And then also, I think the other big pro of working at a job like that is there are lots of intelligent people at those companies. And surrounding yourself with smart or smarter people is just generally a good thing if you're trying to learn. Some people like being a big fish in a small pond. Some people like having a development team of 5 people and being, you know, the smartest person on the team and setting the direction for all of them. And you can still get a taste of that in a big company too, because it's not like you're working with 100,000 other people. In a very loose sense you are, but more likely you're working with, you know, 5 to 50 people. And you can still be a leader of that many people. Just got done with a merger with Broadcom and it was so hectic. Glad it's calming down now. Yeah. I think mergers are tough. There's not even just the like human resource redundancy stuff that needs to get figured out, but it's also any policies that might need to get merged. There's some amount of like, okay, well, the parent company isn't touching our culture for the next year or two, but then they do start to make changes. So it's a lot of growing pains. And is rarely done in the benefit of the employees, right? It's done in the benefits of the founders or the acquiring company. All right, so increase costs every time you build something. Offer buildings occasionally. Rules, I don't even know what this would be exactly. Like maybe there's a special building choice every so often. Yeah, actually, this could be kind of interesting. Maybe every like 5th perk choice is replaced by a building choice. I don't know if this would be fun. Because what I'm thinking of is, let's just list out all the buildings before we continue. So if we list every single one out, we don't have that many. There is the treasure room, town hall, doesn't really count, and then the tavern. I think this is everything, right? Let's just look at the game and see. Oh, the guild, yeah, that also doesn't really count. What else? What else? What else? Farm, pond, tavern, town hall. Key storage, I guess. What am I working on right now? I'm making a game called Skeleseller. And what we're doing today is working on game design pretty much all day for the remaining features. So here's the very short intro to all of this. I started dev on this in April of last year. We've been working pretty consistently since then. There's a demo out. People like the demo and want to keep playing the game. But like I only planned for about 4 to 5 hours of content. 2 are in the demo so far. So the end result of all of this is we need more of something for replayability. And that's where this challenge mode concept comes in. So that's what we're designing today. How do you know people like the demo? From all the different forms of feedback that have existed out there. So for example, like Steam reviews themselves, not everyone who wrote a review is someone who like came to the stream, and it's been only positive so far. People have posted the same things on like the forums. People come to Discord every once in a while. It's much clearer that they like this game over Botland, for example. Also high core. Played and beat the demo 5 times now. So I'm curious, Spirited Away, in your mind, what caused you to want to replay it? And does this idea sound fun to you so far? Like, as someone who's played and beaten it 5 times, I guess let me just list out my questions so it's not super hard to follow. But 1 is, what made you do that? And 2 is, does challenge mode sound fun? Take a look at the game. Yeah. Definitely check it out. Let me know what you think. I think it's pretty good. I think the demo is very generous. I mean, a couple hours of gameplay is more than most demos have. And actually, what's kind of crazy is the median playtime for the demo is 1 hour and 58 minutes right now. So, like, people are playing it quite a lot. This is another thing to answer your question, Core, is like, I think if the median playtime were like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it would show that people don't really like it. But yeah, it's been pretty good. Let me see if I can show you this. Yeah, here it is. So like there are 9 people playing right now. The median playtime is 1 hour and 58 minutes. If I drill into this, you can see 48% of the people who played the game made it to at least 2 hours of gameplay. It's just crazy to me. Also, since the median is 1 hour and 58 minutes, it means if they were more granular about this, you would see where the 50% point is. And I mean, I'm pretty sure because of how median works, it should be at 1 hour and 58 minutes, right? So yeah, anyway, it's pretty interesting. No refunds. I mean, some games try to get you to 2 hours so that they're like, okay, we captured your money now. That's not why we did that for Skeleseller. Also, the demo isn't even refundable, of course, because it's free. Anywhere is it the demo's offering too much? Yes. Yeah, definitely. That's pretty high engagement. No, yeah, it is high engagement, and I'm very happy for that. Thank you. Hey, Campbell Soup and hey, Alchemy. Okay, so here are all the buildings. So what we need to think about is, what if you got the choice of, first of all, should you even get a choice of a potion shop? Should this be another one that doesn't really count? Like, how much do we randomize the items that drop? Maybe the forest drops armors. And is that interesting though? And you can only sell them if you have the armor shop? I like the idea of something slightly different existing at the beginning of the game. But the problem, yeah, okay, here's the problem, I guess. The problem is that the extractor only takes potions and the key grinder only takes weapons. So if we started you with armor items, then you may not be able to use the farm at all. We could drop some like random collection of things. That's another thing I should probably think of. All games where I get to fight and then sell my stuff in a shop format. This challenge mode sounds super fun. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Enjoy trying to find synergies and optimizing where I can. Yeah, I want to try to touch on all of these things with this challenge mode. I I think games that have randomness built in from the very beginning, it makes it so much easier to make something like this mode work because you planned on it from the beginning. And a game that I think did this really well is Risk of Rain 2. You pick a character, so that's not random, and you pick their like specific skills, so that's not random either. So that's your input, and then that's it. Now you're sent to a random stage and you get random items and you have specific choices here and there. Maybe something like buying from a shop or like choosing the next stage. But in general, a lot of it is just based on randomness. It's like, oh, I got these 16 items. Now I should start to use the specific choices to steer my build a bit. And this, I always kind of joke, this is like a heart of the cards kind of thing. A lot of card games have inherent randomness because if you have a deck of cards, you don't know which one you're going to draw next. So the heart of the cards is like, I was given 3, I don't know, lightning cards, let's say. So it's like, I should probably steer toward a lightning build. The heart of the cards was the randomness, in this case, me joking about this, right? It's just your luck. But like, oh, the game is telling you, you should probably steer toward this build. As long as the game made those builds viable, there isn't too much of a reason why you shouldn't do it. Maybe you don't like lightning builds or it causes a play style you don't enjoy, like maybe it's melee in this game or something. But in general, I like that idea of there's a certain amount of like steering versus like forcing. So the game steers and then you can choose to force something. So maybe you're like, oh, I have 4 of the 5 synergy cards I need, so I'm going to really try to go for that 5th one. And then you never get it and your run dies. But yeah, Skeleseller did not have this randomness baked in, so it's going to be shoehorning it a little bit, and we got to figure out if it's going to work. Add more unuseful items that you can only sell and not use. Well, that's pretty much every item in the game. There's almost no specific use for any items. Like, if you get this potion versus this potion, they both just sell. The only differences are some customers may want a certain kind of potion. Some quests may want a certain kind of potion. And then as a category of item, potions are different from armors and we'll have some different parameters there. But yeah, other than that, like everything has the same no use. They're just proxies for money. Pulls 12 pot of greeds. Well, at least you can draw 2 cards. Is there a recycling shop? Yeah, there's the garbage slime. So if you have items you don't want, you can put this here. By the way, I do think you should check out the demo. It's Yash. I say this for a couple of reasons. One, I think if you're even mildly interested, it's probably worth trying out. But 2, eventually what tends to happen is people will start making suggestions based on having taken in a bunch of answers that I say on stream. And it's generally easier if you've experienced it for yourself, because there are a lot of assumptions that people end up making. I'm not saying you've crossed the line or anything. I'm just saying that I think it's a good idea to check it out. Okay, so yeah, should we have randomized drops? And actually another like perk idea could be location loot changes. Forest now drops armor items. Okay, so what might a starting run look like? Like, let's imagine the start of a run where people buy different buildings and there's no clear best building. The farm would let you level sooner. Maybe we could say like the guild lets you get... Oh, you know what we could do though? You might not be able to get these perks unless you unlock the building. So you'd be diluting your perk pool. You may dilute the perk pool by unlocking a building. E.g. plus 20% crop growth wouldn't even show if you don't have the farm. But you pretty much need all of this stuff anyway eventually, right? So maybe that's part of the reason why you're not unlocking this stuff sooner. How did I get into Google? I mean, the literal answer is I applied, or like I studied and then applied. The I guess slightly longer answer is I had a long enough career. Like this sounds weird to say. I don't think I'm a bad engineer or anything like that. I think I like proved that I could do a good job at Google, basically. I think this stuff will be clearer to you. I mean, once you've been coding a bit more, like you'll get what that path means. So in general, and a lot of this won't make a lot of sense to you right now, but the interview process for these companies, at least the sort of FANG companies, is typically three things. It's you have behavioral questions, you have system design questions, and then you have what I would typically call like leak code questions, which are data structures and algorithms. And behavioral are really obvious enough. It's like, hey, what was a time you had to show your leadership skills at a company, or when did you have a hard time working with someone? So they're just basic English questions that you'd know how to answer, but there's a way of answering them, like a strategy. System design are things like, how would you build Twitter? And they start focusing on certain parts, like, okay, the database, like how are you replicating it, what are you sharding based on, what are you whatever, any other number of things, what's your table schemas. And then leak code questions, which are more along the lines of, how would you code this thing, are you making the right choices in terms of trade-offs. So you essentially need to master the interview process to get into these companies, because you can only interview once every year typically with them. So yeah, that's the short answer for a lot of this stuff. And it'll make sense once you've been doing this for a little bit longer, of like, it might sound almost like, oh, it's just like passing a test, right? But there's a lot of luck involved in the test, because you're dealing with typically at least 5 other people who might have had a bad day, might have chosen a really difficult question, might be new to interviewing, might just not like you for some reason. It's almost impossible to remove your biases in those interviews. And yeah, it's just a roll of the dice at the end that you can wait a little bit. First thing I try to max out so I don't lose any money. Yeah, but that's in the main game where the perks are always the same. Imagine if you got the garbage slime and then the first perk you're offered is like farm plus 20% crop growth. And then you get like potion shop plus 30% potion sales or something. And you're like, oh man, I got the garbage slime, but I'm not really getting perks for it. And it's only worth more than the potion shop when I'm exactly at maximum hunger. So now like you're going to feed your armor items to it. So yeah, there are a lot of interesting decisions that can change these equations, and I think that's going to be part of the fun of this. Just waiting for the knights to start playing. Nice, 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 nice. Doesn't have to be your goal. There are arguably better companies to work for, not just FANG-esque ones. Yeah, yeah. Hey, Dan, I totally agree with that, and that's kind of what I was alluding to with what I said. I think there is a certain personality that works with really any type of company. So fill this in with a startup, a small company, a medium company, a company that's been around forever and is not trying to grow, a company with a product that you enjoy. Like, you will probably not be a fit at literally every company that exists out there, because there's going to be some cultural difference or some equation in this that works out differently. And as a just really simple example, just consider fast pace versus slow pace. Some people like a slow pace. They want to focus on the rest of their lives. Some people want a really fast pace. They want to feel like everything's moving a mile a minute. There's no right or wrong. You might just like one and not like the other one. Yeah, I like the idea of the randomly rolled perks for sure. Hey, Codex, I think you'll want the user to be able to build zones with various item types, rarities, and drop rates. Having high profit, low item drops will push for a high price selling build, where low price, high drop would want more customer and sell rates. So the thing we need to do is make it so that both of those have trade-offs. And at least right now in the game, high price is always better, because there is no concept of customers having limited money. And maybe we could introduce something like that. I don't want to make things too difficult for this, but like, is it worth introducing customers with, or introducing like wallets for customers, i.e., they only have X gold to spend and then leave the town? This may make you decide to get higher item prices or versus more items versus garbage slime perks. General ideas, cross system perks, e.g. feeding the garbage slime gives you 1 mana for the enchanter. Oh man, this, you know, every once in a while you've been ruminating on something for so long, and then you finally start putting it into words and specifying everything, and you realize this is what my ideas were steering toward without knowing it. So I had a bunch of these ideas like this specific one. Feeding the garbage line gives you 1 mana for the enchanter. This is not that interesting in the main game mode. It just isn't. But in this game mode, in challenge mode, it could be interesting. Maybe the enchanter does something totally different and you want more mana, but there's no other way to get it. So now you're like, oh, I'll just feed a bunch of trash to the garbage slime, which will give me the mana to allow me to use this special other perk that I got. It's those synergies coming to light. And crash the market on bows if I sell them over and over. Yeah, that's another way of doing this sort of thing. Instead of just a wallet for customers, it could be something like a... It could be a supply demand kind of thing. Although that's a little bit harder to show. A wallet would be just a dollar sign amount above a customer, I guess. Anyway, okay, so the farm would let you level sooner. The garbage slime would let you ditch extra items. What else? Tavern would let you get more workers. Yeah, I think most of the time, probably people are going to want to get one of 2 or 3 things. And I'm not sure. The other way we could do this is we could just say, pick your first building. Special building choice every so often. Maybe every 5th perk choice is replaced by a building choice, which lets you build one of 2 or 3 things. What would cause you to change this decision, though? If we give you a building choice, you need to have enough input to that decision to potentially make a different one the next time you play. So for example, if we only present the first building to you at 5 minutes in, then that would have to be long enough for you to have gotten, say, like 4 to 5 perk choices already, such that you know which problem you're trying to solve. I first want to see what is dropping in zone 1 before buying a shop. Well, that is probably okay. So think about this: if we don't even give you a shop, you'll do a battle in the first zone, and then you'll immediately know what it is you need. So if the forest drops cloaks, then it's like, okay, I'm gonna get the armor shop, right? If it drops potions, I'm gonna get the potion shop. I guess the only way this is maybe interesting is if it drops like sort of random things, like maybe like 2 potions or like 2 to 3 potions worth 3G each versus 1 armor worth 5 gold each. So it's technically more money to get the potions, but then you have more that you have to sell. So now you're kind of making a decision here, but even then it's not much of a decision. And I think it's okay to start with easy decisions at the beginning, but I'm still not certain this is interesting. And then it's kind of got to drop potions in the first place, or else if you did get the farm wouldn't be useful for anything. I guess maybe you could change the extractor for the farm to take any kind of item. Second zone drops the same. I know I want to stack buffs for a specific item type. If it drops something with no synergy, I'd pivot to a more broad strategy. Yeah, it makes me wonder if shops in general are not the way to go. Or maybe you start with all of the shops and you have no item slots for any of them. Is it worth randomizing loot at locations? I think just for run variety, it might be interesting. However, if we don't give potions at first, then the extractor wouldn't work. So maybe you can customize what the extractor takes. Hey, Plan, is your key map available publicly? Yeah. It is right there. So yeah, mod keys I never liked. Well, maybe we're talking about different things, but I guess home row mods. I never liked. I don't like the idea of having to hold a key to do one thing and pressing it to do another thing, except in very rare cases. So for those who don't know, like let's say you're on a QWERTY keyboard. I don't have a QWERTY keyboard, so I'll have to pull up a picture of one. Where's one that you can actually see the keys? I guess this one maybe. Wait. There. I was like, we can just find a typing diagram. Okay, so take a look at this. Your left hand rests on ASDF and your right hand rests on JKL semicolon. So with home row mods, the way this would typically work is you press J, you're going to get a J, but then you hold J and it's going to turn into shift. So in order to type a capital F, you hold J and press F. But in order to type JF, you press J and then press F. So you can see there's already like okay, I got to think of how long am I pressing my finger on each key for all of these things. So yeah, if you want to press command, you're holding down D. So copy is hold down D and press C, and then paste is hold down D and press V. I never liked that. So instead what I use are one-shot mods. And I can show this off here. So if I hold this key down and then press this, for example, this key is now lit. This is command. If I press A on my keyboard, this is no longer lit. So it just sent command A, which highlighted all the text. Now when I press A again, it just types out an A. So that's the one-shot part of this. And I like that way of doing things. Do you have thieves and guards in the game? Maybe add these to protect your goods. There's no concept of needing to protect your goods right now. We could add a system like that, but I don't think we need to for the challenge mode to work. I think the difficulty here is figuring out what is changing your decisions at the beginning of the game. Like, why would you pick one thing over the other? And like, I don't think you need more workers necessarily. You basically need a way to dump your early game items. So I guess let's consider the game mode. The main game mode, yeah. The main game mode has you get the potion shop first. Then you almost certainly get the garbage slime immediately thereafter. Then you get the armor shop after you've beaten the first boss. So if we want you to change that up, then we need to change which items drop or which quantities of those items. But you also, I guess players already do make a decision of do they want the armor shop or the farm first. But there's no pressure, so they're not really thinking too actively about that. And yeah, I guess this all comes down to like, how hard are the enemies? I guess you want to level up so that... Okay, here, I'm going to just keep brainstorming here. We could randomize enemy stats a bit. Maybe battles are really long in your playthrough. Usually the forest takes like 40 seconds to win, such that you want to prioritize leveling up even sooner because like you're not getting enough loot. The other thing we might need to consider here is what other perks might be happening. So yeah, it could be like, hey, these potions are worth more money. So potions are worth more money. So now you want to seek out those potions. So you actually wouldn't want to advance the game just yet because maybe the next location doesn't drop stuff that's as good. Should we even have you unlock locations? Okay, that's another kind of interesting thing. Man, this is so difficult. So what if you didn't have to unlock locations and all whatever number 8 or 10 locations are available from the beginning? You would then need to figure out which ones are beatable or which drop the best things in order to prioritize a build. The first thing that I ask is that fun? Like, probably not. You do one battle at each location to figure out the drops. Then you figure out what to prioritize. We could just show you the rewards from the get-go. But still, is that fun? Like, what are you looking for? I always kind of have to imagine someone who's played this now a few times and they start understanding the decision tree. So, are you looking for a location where you're just getting the most gold? You're like, oh, I'm just going to go for the garbage slime. And when I get the garbage slime, then I can just sell all the extra stuff myself. Yeah. This is where I was writing over here. We need to figure out what is the early game, what is the mid game, and what does the end game look like? Where did I write that down? Where did I write that down? Yeah, here it is. If you split the game into a start, middle, and end, what do they all look like? Or rather, what do we want them to look like? What is how is the early game engaging? A lot of roguelikes have this problem where once you've played 5 or 10 runs, you're like, oh, I'm just going through the motions for the beginning until I can get some momentum here. And it'd be nice to skip a lot of that. And yet, to some extent, like, that's what defines the rest of the game for you. And in Slay the Spire, this got like really annoying on the higher ascension levels. So I would end up picking the one where it said the first 3 enemies have 1 HP. So these are guaranteed wins. Like, you're not going to take any damage. You pretty much just kill, even if it's an elite, you kill it in 1 hit. And that way, at least I could get some cards and maybe a relic or 2 and figure out like what's going on in this run. And by having them have 1 HP, it was like, well, I'd be able to do that faster. So I want the early game to play out quickly enough. But one of the other things you could do is you could just say, like, you start the game with like 5 random items or something like that. If you do this, now you might make people just randomly start the game until they're like, I got the 5 items I want. So you also want to prevent against that. And Slay the Spire had some like protection mechanism against this. You had to get like far enough in a run so that when you restarted, you were given like the strong options. That sounds awful. There's no challenges. Yeah. I'm not saying this is a good system. I'm saying that we really need to think of a better one. Hey, sorry. Yeah, roguelike pivot. Check out this. You ever thought about the idea of adventurers being unable to fight for a certain number of fights if they had died in a previous fight? I want to be really careful about a battle penalty because, excuse me, no matter what, with a battle, it's like if you see you're going to lose, you could click flee and you can negate any penalty. And I don't think it would be fun for you to be like, oh, I'm about to lose. Let me just click flee or let me close the battle. And if you don't have the flee button, then you're like locking adventurers into a battle that they might win, but it might just take them forever. Like, this battle is already taking a really long time. If I'm like, oh man, I don't want them fighting here, I accidentally clicked that. It's like, in order to correct this mistake, I had to wait 14 seconds. So in general, I don't think battle penalties still make sense. Like, there's probably some way to do that, but I haven't thought of a great idea for it yet. Early game, maximize profits based on what items can be farmed. Mid game, maximize adventurer growth. Late game, maximize damage based on stacking a team adventurers and chests and enchanter. Yeah, I think that's a good overall view of this. I think the issue is I'm not totally sure. So maximize profits based on what can be farmed. This would be some amount of exploration through the choices. And I don't know exactly what's interesting there. I still haven't really thought about this. So it could be like different locations drop randomized loot and you're seeing what makes the most sense for your build so far. So yeah, maybe you can handle tons of potions, but not tons of armors. So you opt to boost up the forest because it drops potions, but each item isn't worth as much. I think this sort of decision is interesting, and I think the perks can start to foster that to some extent. We could have a perk that says something like plus 10% potion sales. Right now we don't have that. We have plus 10% like loot sales. And then we can have a perk that says something like potions can stack in the item shop. Or something like potions drop more frequently. I'm just not sure. Like, you can do this. These aren't really exciting perks. And at some point, this is kind of like what happens in a game like StarCraft. You invested in your infantry, and then it turns out you need to switch to tanks. And now all your upgrades for your infantry didn't matter as much anymore. It's like, all right, you got all these perks. And now you get to a point in the game where you're like, oh, I'm not getting potions anymore, though. So you could also maybe shoehorn in that. There could be a perk like all locations will drop at least one potion. Or, I don't know, you convert loot for a location. And how much of that is fun versus just something you feel you need to do because of what perks the game gave you. So yeah, this can go any number of directions, and that's why this is so difficult to figure out, because we're like playwriting this. Can use random penalties too. Blight on the land, half farm effectiveness, wizard hatred. Wizard hatred. Potions are worth -2G. Yeah, there can be random penalties as well. And that's one of the other things I had written here. Negative effects. Yeah, should the game modify itself in negative ways? Maybe for some portion of time, there are these. Goes to your decision making. We could, I don't know, I'll just copy paste what Dan said. Excuse me. Yeah, so I sort of like this idea, but how does this play out? And I still need to think about that. So like, what if the forest always dropped one potion, one armor, and one weapon? You choose which shop you want to build first, and then the other items are just deleted. The other items get deleted, I guess, or will disappear. Like, that doesn't really sound interesting. Also, if you're not making a decision based on this, like, are you picking just the most valuable one? I don't think the decision there is interesting. So if I want what's happened in the game to steer your decision and not have it be super obvious, then there needs to be a choice from the player. If I want the events in the game to steer a decision, it can't be super obvious. In the above example of dropping one item of each type, you would just pick the most valuable one. So the game needs to help steer that somehow. Maybe it could be some innate perk, like plus 10% potion sales, minus 10% weapon sales. But then that's still an obvious decision, right? Hey, Free Technic. Yep. And thank you, Dan. Could be interesting if there's a harder tier. Potions sell least, armor sell okay, weapons sell most, but also potions are common, weapons are rare. And ones you don't pick are 50%, minus 50% sale price. Potions are common, ones are rare, and ones you don't pick. When you say ones you don't pick, are you talking about like perks that you don't pick? Will get set with a random type of items to drop, which could be 3 of the same or 1 of each. That will stick for that run, and the player will choose how to handle the situation. Like with this idea, pick a starting item. Oh, I see. Yeah, I kind of like what Codex said here of we randomize the drops and have you decide based on what you see. Maybe not of the forest, though. Maybe of the next location. Like, maybe the forest is always potions. I'm not sure. Like, do we want to change which shop you get? Do we... Again, one of the other problems we have here is the farm only takes potions in the extractor. So if we drop some potions here, you put these in the extractor. If we drop some weapons and stuff first, and you could just literally not use the farm. So we need to either allow this to use a different kind of item, which that's not so bad. We could have you pick this, I guess. Although it wouldn't make sense if you're getting seeds out of a bow. Who cares about that, I suppose. But if only certain items can be surfaced with certain heroes or adventurers. But then you're essentially just obfuscating the decision a little bit. Like, oh, I got the rogue, so now I'm going to find weapons. But you're still going to make the same decisions based on that. And if all you did was get the rogue because of you just like the rogue or something, then it might not really be changing too much. Randomize the drops and have you decide based on what you see. E.g., the forest always rolls 3 items, and maybe they're all the same. But maybe they're they're a potion slash armor slash weapon, then the game needs to allow for you to sell all three types. Given that you need 3 shops to sell all 3 types, that may be a tall order. Also, if the other locations don't follow the same pattern, then the decisions you make based on the forest wouldn't even matter. If the next location drops 3 of a different type, then you're out of luck, I guess. Hey, 715209. Oh man. Okay, so yeah, this is, I guess the other sort of problem here is items are just proxies for money. So we're basically saying we need to add in some other property here. Perks allow the extractor to take other items. Players would commit those resources to effectively abandon the need for potions toward the mid game. Yeah, we could also, there's another thing we could do here, I guess, which is maybe sort of a combination of what other people are talking about here, which is like, we could just say that potions are an early game thing. Armors are mid game and weapons are end game. Maybe you start getting hundreds of potions toward the end and have to figure out what you even want to do with them. But that's not really an early game thing. It's just a cheap and plentiful thing. So is it, I guess the question comes down to is it an interesting decision to figure out which shop to build at first? And I think the answer we're coming up with so far is no, unless we force it to be interesting. That's too linear. That part is linear, but that doesn't need to be the part where the interest comes from in a run. That's at least what I'm hypothesizing right now. So for example, in Slay the Spire, it's like you're always going up by a floor. There's always a boss every, I don't know what, 10 or 15 floors. I don't remember the number. And like you pick a path and maybe you prioritize elites versus shops versus campsites. Is that a steno keyboard? Or did I ask this question already before? This is a corn keyboard. And yes, you did ask this question before. This was June 19th, 2025. Anyway, it's a corn keyboard. It's not steno. There's still, each key is a letter or a symbol. Whereas with steno keyboards, they're mostly syllables. I think my message is recorded here. Oh no, all of Twitch works that way. So like if you click, if any other streamer clicks your name in their stream, they can click this thing at the bottom, messages, and then you can just see the messages that somebody typed. So this is not me doing this. This is Twitch doing this. And I just happen to click the thing to see it. Yeah. I can't see what your messages are in someone else's stream, just to be clear, unless I'm a moderator there. So not everyone can see your chat history. But in this case, your chat history is, innocuous enough. It's not like you were sharing personal info or something. You just asked if you'd asked that question before. Maybe some min-max path worked out that people will naturally take a lot of the time. These early game decisions become inconsequential to people after they run X amount of times and learn what they can do. That is true. Yeah. So I think what you need to do is make it interesting for the people who are in the first like 10 runs, because that's why we're making this feature. There might be someone out there and this game might be fun enough where people play it like 1,000 times, and that'd be awesome. Great. But I'm not designing for that right now. We're designing for the people who played the game for about 5 hours and they want another like 15 hours of gameplay. And then if they keep going, like I said, yeah, that's great. But if they stop there, that's totally fine. Also, if the game is successful at first, it's like we can build on this some more and start changing the decision tree. So yeah, is it interesting to figure out which shop to build first? I said no, unless we force it to be interesting. So I guess still, like, how would we make it interesting then? And vary the items that drop, quantities, prices, rarities, I guess. I just still think no matter what we do here, it's like there's going to be an obvious thing to pick. Like if the first shop you build is the armor shop, it's because you were getting the most armor items. So going back to Slay the Spire for a second. So the Slay the Spire map. lets you see, yeah, this lets you see ahead of time where you're going to be able to go. So as an example here, even if you don't know this game, the way this works is you start at the bottom and you work your way up. And at any fork, you can choose which way you want to go. So if you were at this question mark, you could go left to the other question mark and go right to this little monster thing. So that's it. That's all you really need to know for this. The point is, though, at any point, you can see what the whole map is. So when you're choosing which path to the very bottom of the map to go, you can see there's a treasure chest here, there's a little gold thing here, there's a question mark here. So if you're aiming for all the question mark paths, you can choose which path is going to make you hit the most of those. The equivalent in Skeleseller would be that you can see the loot from all of the different locations ahead of time so that you can plan out like, man, it looks like I'm going to get a lot of armor items. But I don't think it's very interesting to go plan that ahead of time. Like, imagine if this is what you saw. You're hovering over this and it says, okay, I'm getting potions from here. Then I'm getting, looks like a lot more potions. Yeah. Then I'm getting, okay, more armors now. And then I'm starting to work into more and more weapons. Like, I guess if you only have 8 locations to look through, it's not too bad. But I don't think that's interesting still. So unlike Faster Than Light, you have perfect information by default and no zone limits. At least in Slay the Spire, you did for this. All of the question marks were random. So you didn't know what this could be positive or negative, whereas a monster battle was always a monster battle. But in Skeleseller, we haven't designed anything yet. So perfect information or not, I'm not sure yet. But I don't think it's interesting information to consume. And we were talking about this earlier with Balatro. Balatro and Slay both have a way of choosing like the next, I'll just say fight after the current one. Slay uses a map. Balatro just uses a, do you want to skip this? Yes or no? I think. I only played for like half an hour, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So like they both have some way of you influencing where do I go from here. Slay provides a little bit more information for that. Perfect info is an upgrade you'd pick up. Yeah. And we could do something like that too. I think what I'm coming to the conclusion of is I don't think your shop choice probably matters too much. And there's another idea that we have here, which is, should we just start you with one of, or well, not one, but should we just start you with each shop? Or alternatively, here are some like out there questions. Should we start you with each shop, or should we let you build copies of shops? So you could have 3 potion shops and have no way of selling armor other than to the garbage slime. That's a little more interesting now. And this is, if the decision already wasn't going to matter, then we may as well skip the decision. But yeah, we let you build copies of shops. So what do you do with these overflow items? For potions, you could always put them in the extractor. For weapons, you could always put them in the weapon grinder. For armors, there's no third use. But then again, these taking potions and this taking weapons could also be randomized, or you could choose. You could be like, okay, instead of a weapon grinder, this is now a key grinder, or an armor grinder, I mean. You put armor items in it. Have a general store which can sell anything at a reduced rate. Yeah, that's another thing we could do here. We could also have a general store which lets you sell anything at a lower rate. In fact, maybe that's how this works. Maybe you start with a general store. So it's both of the ideas above. It can hold 2 of any item and gives like -1 gold to sales or something like that. It doesn't matter. And then as you realize what's dropping, as you realize what's dropping, you may build a specific shop. There's another system up here that I think is kind of interesting, which is like keep static costs for the shops, knowing that you, for certain buildings, knowing that you're going to need them. E.g. in level, I'm going to say like ascension level, even though this is not ascension levels. In ascension level 5, the first shop costs 75G and the treasure room costs 200G. In Ascension level 10, those both increase by 25%. Something that makes things really complicated is the item type that the player farms could lead into which adventure gets the most gains. Your early choices in item type may lead to a group of adventures. It's a mismatch to the final encounter. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying there. Adventurers don't level up from like regular items. They level from guild supply. Oh wait. Maybe what you're talking about is like potions versus not potions. Because we would just make the extractor take different items. The extractor would need to be flexible. Or rich traveling merchant that comes randomly in X turns, tells you when, buying at Y%, and tells you what item type they're looking to buy so you can plan to farm that item for their arrival. Yeah. I think that could be like an event that happens on top of this where it feels like a reward for what happened. And maybe that's another idea that we need to write down is like there could be occasional events. Should there be occasional events that change up the decisions or reward you for something? Maybe you can even steer these. Joker, Dan suggested a traveling merchant. Well, I'll just copy paste it. All my perks are leveled up and garbage slime is now what I'm focusing on. Nice. Okay, the other thing that's at least in my mind right now is, let's say we do this general shop thing. Like, I don't have code for that. So we need to make it so that an item shop can allow for any kind of item. The other thing we could do is we could have only general shops and you buy specific item stands. So like a potion stand, a weapon stand, an armor stand. And it can only sell that item. So any shop can be like 6 armor stands, 2 potion stands. So you can sell no weapons, but you could sell a lot of potions or armors or whatever it is I said. I don't like that because then there need to be a visual difference in these. And I think it's better to just change the icon here. But I guess you could just put the icon on each one of these things. I'm thinking the extractor for non-potion items and maybe even potions assist in producing an adventure-specific leveling resource. So that we haven't talked about yet because that can go any number of ways. What I was thinking is right now you're getting sludge. Sludge could be used just like how the random perks could be used. So imagine 50 gold gets you a perk choice. And it's like, I don't know, build the farm or plus 20% item sales or some other thing. And then we can make it be that sludge gives you adventurer choices. So 50 sludge is something like level up the rogue versus hire the mage versus get a skill point on the paladin. So we split the currencies this way. This could be interesting, but I haven't thought about that yet. Or at least not too much. Hey Karada, hey Pro. Auction house might be an interesting alternative to a general store. I think it would function basically the same way. If you think of what an auction house is in player-driven games, it's a way for players to list items in a game where otherwise typically only NPCs sell items. So that's what makes it like an auction house, and then people can bid on it and stuff. The bidding part isn't really super important in my mind. And even in World of Warcraft, I don't think bidding was very common. It was mostly like, I just want this now, so let me just buy it out. So in here, I think keeping them as just shops is probably the way to go. The idea of starting with a general store and then being able to customize the other two is kind of interesting, though. I kind of like that idea. I like the idea of starting with a general store and then having specific shops for the other plots. However, this involves a bunch of coding changes. We need workers to prioritize the specific shops. If you have 2 potion shops in the general store and find a potion, it shouldn't take up a slot that could be used for a weapon. This will probably bother people. The other thing is shops currently can't be duplicated, and shops currently, actually maybe they can allow them to be general. In fact, let's go try this out really fast. Let's go to town, create shop. Got to reload VS Code. Always fun when that happens. Create shop. Okay, here it is. So what do we do here? Shop data, set the item category. And then we initialize it. Okay, what if after that, I just go change the item category? No, that initializes it with the item displays though, right? Add next item display. I guess we could just set this here. Where's the category? There it is, item category. So we can just say item category dot none. Okay, let's try that. Hey, Cavino, since when? Since Monday. I'll tell you the context leading up to that right after I just test this. Give me a sec. So if I put an armor in here, does this work now? Yeah. And then if I put a weapon in here. Okay, well, it turns out that part was trivially easy to do. So now do customers buy this stuff? I don't know if they will. They do. Okay, well, that part's fine. Shops need to be allowed to stock anything. We can just change the item display that gets created. And it looks like everything just works. But can workers use them? Maybe not. No, it doesn't look like they can. Because we try fetching the weapon shop. Yeah, that's a good point. So, but workers won't stock them. So we need to change some code for that. So if we're going to do that, that needs to be something we're certain about. So Cavino, the context for this is we have the demo right now. It's about 2 hours of gameplay. People played it. They liked it. They're like, we want more. So for the main game, it was always planned that we're going to have like about 5 hours of gameplay. But then I'm nearly positive people are going to say the same thing. Like, okay, that was fun, but what, the game just ended? Like, what am I doing? So we needed something for replayability, and there were some high level options that we had. It's either like make an infinite town or an infinite run. A lot of idle games go this route. Or it could be come up with some like variations on the game that you play once, but then you'd run in the same problem. You get done with all the variations and you're just done. Or it's make an infinitely replayable mode, which is what we opted for, which means we need some randomness, which is where the roguelike stuff comes in. So the roguelikification is, instead of just being presented with something like this, like, hey, here are 4 options, pick which one you want to buy. You will instead click a buy perk button, and it'll pop something up saying like, choose one. And, there'll be perk 1, perk 2, perk 3. So your runs may be different based on what things you were offered. Notice how great my roguelike was going, and like, oh my god, I got a coffee Cavino. That's how it happened. Yeah, ignore all the context I just told you. I am what they call a sheep. And I know only how to copy and paste. Hey, Will Cleaver. Recently watched your video about Obsidian and encouraged me to install it. Now I'm using it for my freelance web dev work. Nice. I think the important part is just taking notes. I think Obsidian is good and I use it, but I think just taking notes is like the superpower. And then, yeah, once you've taken notes, figuring out what application you like the best. I have a review that might feel bad. Should I say? Yeah, of course. Yeah. Have you found Cursor to be useful for trivial changes to Skeleseller? I've never tried Cursor, so I wouldn't know. This is VS Code. Fun spinoff / idle would be one of those desktop ones that sits at the bottom of the screen while you work. A few of them popped up on Steam. Yeah, I think Skeleseller ended up being more active than idle anyway. Makes me think we could instead make one mega shop and you randomly choose which item type displays. Yeah, that's what I mentioned just earlier. But I think one of the problems with that is I think we need some indicator on each of these. So it'd be like there's an icon on each one. It might get a little confusing because this looks sort of like a potion. So you might think like, oh, is that filled? Is it not filled? But yeah, we could do that. The other thing by having it be a mega shop is now the location doesn't matter as much, which is maybe not a big deal. I'm using Obsidian with Google Docs, yeah. And there's always the why Google Docs question. It's not a super convincing reason. I just sometimes write notes in Google Docs. A lot of my throwaway notes are in Google Docs. Okay, also this suggests that you would want to build different shops for this. And if you didn't make use of that, then this wouldn't really have helped you too much. So like, if you were only going to build one of each shop type anyway, then I guess it wouldn't matter too much. Maybe it's better to just have a perk saying your armor shop can sell weapons. Yeah. which you would choose. What switches do you enjoy in the corn? I'm using linear switches. They're Kale Reds. I like them well enough. They're pretty light though. So when I first got the keyboard, I had a problem with like just resting my hand on my keyboard. I'd accidentally hold down a key because of how little contact or how little, sorry, I was reading Pressel's message, how little force it would take to actuate the switch. I hate Pressel. Oh man. Okay. I'm still uncertain about this. What do we have here? Start you with each shop. I kind of like this idea. Let's pursue that for a second. So yeah, what if we started you with one of each shop? Maybe. So then you'd be able to sell whatever you find. You could still choose which to upgrade. The act of building a shop isn't super interesting. If you're finding weapons, then you need a weapon shop. Or the garbage slime. Or the weapon grinder. Armors don't even have another use. So it would just be the armor shop or the garbage slime. Is it lagging? No one's commented on that so far, so it might be you. What if all shops are generic and the specialty shops get a bonus? If you're building to farm all item types, the generic shop is ideal. So the thoughts I have here are, I'm still not certain it's going to be interesting to base a decision on what is dropping. I think it'd be more interesting to base it on what perks showed up or what other random things happened. Because if you think about it, this concept of what if all shops are generic, it's very similar. This is very similar to perks deciding what's best. So imagine a perk that said like plus 20% potion sales and another perk that said like plus 20% potion drop rate. This is like the specialization, but now it's done through a system that we're already gonna have to code. So I don't need to change the shops or anything. I'm not certain it's super interesting. I'm not positive. I'm not positive how that's going to work. I think we probably do need to randomize drops for each location. So right now the forest just always drops a small blue potion. We'd probably need to say in the future that just, pick a few items and maybe they'll all be potions, maybe they won't be. So I think I'm leaning toward this. Leaning toward you start with one of each shop. Since building them isn't that interesting. Perks can change the parameters around items such that you feel like you're specializing. Maybe we allow for shops to hold more items. Maybe we do this via item stacking being specific to an item type. Yeah. Like we could maybe say in this mode that we need to change the map around a bit, but instead of having a max of 10 displays, we could consolidate them a bit and make it a max of 15 or 20. And then location should randomize the loot that they drop. Maybe each location picks like 1 to 3 item types at random. So let's think about this. Hypothetical starting. You start the game. You enter challenge mode. And you would have all of the shops built for you by default. So we have now 2 item displays in each shop. Now you go into the forest and you win the fight. So let's approximate this by going here, since this can already drop 3 different items. So we go here and we win the fight and we got a few potions and a couple of armor items. So like, okay, we put these things in their respective slots here. And we're like, oh, there's actually an extra potion that's dropping more of the time than the extra armor stuff. So now when we see perks about potions, we might want to take those. And then because we got the potion perks, the next location we're hoping will drop potions, but there's no guarantee for that. So maybe we don't even go to the next location. This is where I think we need enough granularity in location decisions. You probably need... And Plan, thanks for subbing. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We probably need locations to be granular enough in terms of time to progress so that if you find a bad location, it doesn't matter as much. Now, I did say that if this entire map was going to take you 2.5 hours, that it should now take you half an hour because we're trying to make the game last about an hour. So we probably don't expect you to fully complete all of these things. If you happen to get super powerful adventurers, maybe you could. But then we do expect you to go through these faster. So yeah, you beat the forest, you go to the canyon, maybe you can repeat the canyon, and maybe it's dropping weapons and you're like, this just isn't worth it for me. So you choose to just stay in the forest for a little while longer. Yeah, I think this is a good starting point at least. So coding wise, this is trivially easy. This is easy enough. It's easy enough in terms of the task, but we need to like rearrange where shops are and stuff. It's going to be annoying. And then locations randomizing the loot would probably be a little bit difficult to do too. But yeah, I think this is what we're going to go with here. But this only answers a question for shops. I'll still write this down in the design. Paying to reroll perks a set amount of times. Yeah, we got to answer that question too. Like rerolling, banning, banking. Yeah, I guess that's kind of it. Maybe. I guess vetoing is pretty much like rerolling, huh? Where's the design? There it is. Okay, so buildings. You start with one of each shop. Rationale, it's just not that interesting to figure out which shop to build. If you're getting armor items, of course you'll want the armor shop. Well, I should say it this way. You will, of course, want the armor shop. Weapons and potions at least have multiple uses, but even then, for you to pick which shop you would have, it means that you would almost certainly want to change what the extractor and weapon grinder take so that you can get seed/fish/keys. Hey, Goose. Wonder if people would want an auto-accept quest so they can just AFK collect items. Are we talking about for challenge mode? Challenge mode is pretty much going to be like time limited. So I don't think you're going to AFK this mode. We're going to pretty much say that it's like an active game at this point. For getting stronger when AFK. Are we talking about challenge mode though? I'm not asking about the AFKing part. Because the game is going to be split into like the main mode, which is what people play now. And then challenge mode, which is what we're designing. So what we're designing is going to be about 1 hour long for runs and probably more active than the main mode, given that it's condensed and that you have perk choices to make pretty often. So I don't think the concept of auto-accepting quests is important for the sake of AFKing. It might be important for the sake of just like having one less thing to click. But even then, there's no way to turn off quests right now, so it's kind of costing you money, so you'd have to make a trade-off there. And I think that trade-off is kind of interesting. But yeah, I'm still curious what mode you're talking about. Start with one of each shop. So this was this part of this that we have. Perks can change parameters of these items. We can still differentiate item efficacy through perks. We can allow shops to hold more items than they can in the main game. Maybe just by moving displays around. And then location should randomize the loot. Yeah. I'll write that down over here. Loot should be randomized. Rationale. Perks that modify loot are more interesting Well, it's just pretty much everything gets more interesting. You're not seeing the same items every time. Perks have more of an impact based on what you're finding. Have you considered optimizing for Steam Deck Verified? Not sure if the badge would be of any value, but I often get recommended these games on the deck. Yes, we have. I don't think it's going to happen by launch time. It is playable on the Steam Deck right now. It's just not a great experience. I was just thinking about regular gameplay. Didn't notice you were doing challenge mode. Yeah. Today's all about challenge mode. But even for regular gameplay, I don't think it's super important. I don't think regular gameplay lasts for that long. Plus, then people wouldn't see the quest text. I wrote that for a reason. Also, quests perform one other small function, which is to get you to go to the new locations. So a lot of people will know that the tavern exists and go see a quest. And then by seeing the quest and like having gone through this, they'll be like, oh, I can't get that item yet. Whereas if it was auto-accepted, they might just ignore that completely and be like, what am I supposed to do next? So if they see that this is an item they don't have, they might be like, oh, right, I can upgrade the portal. So it serves as a reminder for them. All right, so differentiate item efficacy through perks. Rationale, everything is more interesting. You're not seeing the same items every time. Perks have more of an impact on what you're finding. This even impacts the early game a bit. If you find only potions, you may choose the potion perks. Hey, Ramy. Yeah, so then another question I have, and we still haven't finished the buildings thing, but is it interesting to get perks like plus 20% potion drop rate alongside more powerful perks? I generally don't like tiny changes to gameplay. Rather have perks that are impactful at any given point. Also, do those perks feel like an interesting decision? Let me think about this. Some perks probably should just be random. How can we just give you completely random perks at some point? Without that, you're only ever steering, which I don't think should be the only way to get perks. Add bumper cars to the game. Anti-grab bumper cars, so there's no impact, and Ramy's idea is foiled. Okay, so let's go back to our list of buildings, and let's look at it now. Where'd the list of buildings go? Here. So let's look at it through the lens of what we just talked about. So potion shop is going to be built by default. This and this. And then we don't need to write doesn't count here. And choice to build. Okay, so back to buildings. What would make you choose one of these over any other? Like, aren't the most important always going to be the garbage slime, the farm, and maybe the warehouse? Drop rate, I would think influences perk choices. 7 potions all at once can be hard to manage without the right perks. I think it would, yeah. And some of these questions I write aren't necessarily there is a problem, but rather make sure there isn't a problem. Although there probably is a problem because I can't imagine all this is going to be great on the first go. But yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, so aren't the most important ones going to be these? Like, why would you choose to get, let's say, the enchanter first? Or would you even be happy if you got it first? Maybe. I guess it depends on which spells are available. But now let's say you get the treasure room first. Are you happy about that? You're getting treasure chests and maybe you're upgrading those all of a sudden. It could be interesting. I don't want you to feel like you ended up in a situation you can't handle. As an example, let's say at the beginning of the game, the forest drops 3 types of potions. So you're getting overloaded with potions and you don't seem to have any recourse. So like you want the garbage slime, but you're not getting them. You instead get that. Well, I guess the farm helps too. Maybe armors just need another function in the game. Also, let me write something else down that we have here. Probably need it. No, maybe not. Yeah, you instead get the enchanter. Are you happy about that? Maybe that's how buildings work. I'm just making up a thing. Every 5 minutes, a new building is created for you. And maybe the first building you get is the treasure room, and you're like, oh, this is interesting. I haven't gotten that before. And now your adventurers are getting more powerful by opening treasure chests. But we need to make sure it's balanced. You'd also be getting perks for that thing. I kind of like the idea of buildings just being randomized. But then I also kind of want you to be able to steer. And I still haven't answered what the tavern even does. Yeah, I kind of like that. Kind of like the idea that buildings are randomized and you make whatever you have work. So if you get the tavern, well, wait, maybe the tavern's not as interesting. We don't know what the tavern does, so let's just ignore that for now. If you get the treasure room, then you have a treasure focused run. You know, side note, one of the things that always blew my mind is if you look at StarCraft 2 units or StarCraft 1 units or something, there aren't that many. There aren't that many units or buildings. It's like each race has what? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. Yeah, it's like 15 units, right? And yet, if you watch professional StarCraft, they make it sound like the game just has endless possibilities. Like, oh, I can go this into this into this. And it's like, I guess all it took is like 15 units to get that to happen. So we don't have that many buildings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But still, depending on the order you get those 7 in, it might drastically alter the game. Do you get a random perk or do you get to C3 and pick one? I was thinking the C3 and pick one. Those 3 would be random, but then the one you pick obviously is one you choose. So you steer the randomness a bit. But I think I also want there to be some choice at some point. Also, buildings might be separate from the perks. It might be we just give you the warehouse all of a sudden. Although I'm not sure that would be interesting. Maybe we could say like items in the warehouse have a chance to duplicate themselves. We kind of need to think about. Yeah, I need to think about this. Is every build viable? If we decide to give out buildings in a random order and you get the warehouse first, how do we make it so that you're happy about that? It could be that we give you interest based on items in the warehouse. E.g., for every 30 seconds that an item sits around, you get 20% of its value. Warehouse could be ignored if you get perks generating a high sell rate. The possibilities are only endless because of timing. The warehouse could be ignored, but what I'm trying to get at is what if you were just given the warehouse and you're like, I didn't want this? You can ignore it, but then you won't get another building till, let's say, 5 minutes later. So now you get the thing you actually wanted and you're like, oh, this run is already kind of off to a bad start because I got the warehouse at the beginning. So like we need to make it so that it doesn't feel like it was a bad thing. And right now the warehouse is kind of just overflow space. Maybe what that's pointing to is that we should start you with the warehouse as well. And instead of building it, you are just getting perks, like add more storage to it. That could potentially work. And I should write that down too. One way of solving, or one way of addressing this is to give out any other buildings by default that wouldn't be exciting without those special perks. The warehouse is probably a good candidate for that. So then there'd only be 6 buildings. But now of all of these, I think they all have their own special strategies that could make sense, except for we haven't decided what the tavern does. For every item sold, it also sells a duplicate of that item from the warehouse. That's pretty interesting. I never thought about that. In fact, let's just write this down in here. That's pretty interesting. Where'd the perks go? Where should I put this? I guess let's put it in just warehouse. I would frame this as X% chance to sell a duplicate from the warehouse. Yeah, so it's not, well, the way Rami said it is X is basically 100, which I mean, as a starting point, it's trivially easy to go from what he said to what I said. So I give him credit even for what I said. But yeah, I would probably make it a chance, so it's not a guarantee. Okay, so I like this idea that I said here. They are randomized and you make whatever you have work. So how do we randomize them then? How do we randomize them? We could say you buy a building for X gold, but you don't know which one you're building. Or every X minutes, we give you a building. Or it's a random perk choice to get a new building. Maybe it's slightly rare. Maybe there's a pity timer for it. What else could we do here? I think that's it. Well, that's at least the main ideas I have. Okay, so which one of these sounds best? I think I'm leaning toward this by default. I think this one is the least appealing to me because I don't like things that just happen without you knowing that they happened. So this would at least cause you to make this choice. And the buildings could just keep increasing in cost. So maybe your first building is 50 gold, and then the second building is 100 gold, and so on and so forth. And we don't expect you to get them all. I like this idea. Yeah, I like this idea. So at some point, you'll make the decision that, hey, I would benefit from another building right now. And your first one is going to be pretty game defining. Your second one kind of might be, your third one kind of might be, but then after that, they might drop off because you wouldn't have the perks to support them. And then for higher, I'm calling them ascension levels just for ease right now, we could change the equation a bit so that we expect you to get fewer buildings per run. All right, so is this idea enticing? Maybe you get the garbage slime as your first building, and now you're like, oh man, I need to pump everything I have into this because it can sell anything. Maybe you get the farm as your first building. How would you level up if you don't get one of those, though? Okay, yeah, that's got to be figured out. How would you level up your adventurers if you don't get a level up kind of building? Hey, Smack. Will they always be positive, or can you get curses that adds a debuff to your gameplay? I hadn't thought about the curses. I was just thinking of what if there were some negative effects somehow? But yeah, I can write that down. So yeah, this is a really important question. I love this idea. I definitely love this. But yeah, what do you do if you're like, all my adventures are level 1? I'm not even able to level them up because it unlocked the garbage slime for me, and then the enchanter, and then I don't know what the tavern does exactly, but the tavern next. So now what do we do? And what we could say is that there's some other way of leveling up your adventurers. Maybe you can buy wisdom sludge. That's risky though, because now there's a really difficult balance problem. Tier 1 and tier 2 buildings, essentials are in the tier 1 category. Well, so what I was thinking was essential is anything we just build for you by default. So we said the shops are essential, so just give them to the player. The warehouse may be essential, so just give that too. But then the farm and pond, you need to be able to increase your power. So either we semi-force you to get those buildings, either by granting them by default, or by like forcing that option at a certain point, or we allow you to increase your power through other means, or we just don't have a way to increase your power. You just hire more and more adventurers and try to swarm the battles and get tons of items, of like low level items or something. Hey, typical. And hey, Duff, would you draw cards to get the blueprint of a building, enabling you to buy it or build it? Like you draw 2 random cards, that would increase the chance you get the farm. It's sort of equivalent to saying, what if we just show you the thing, a choice of what you're going to buy? And maybe that's how we could do that. Like instead of buying a random building, you are buying one of 2 buildings, and at any point you get to see, and we make sure that within the first 3 choices, either the farm or the pond is there. We could, instead of randomly building, we could offer you 2 choices, and we could force the farm or pond to be in the first 3 choices, or first 3 rounds of choices, I mean. So as an example, maybe for 50 gold, you're offered the enchanter versus the, I don't know, garbage slime. And you're like, okay, cool, I want the enchanter. And then your 100 gold choice is the tavern versus the farm, and your 150 gold choice is, you know, something else. I don't know, the one you didn't choose versus the pond or something like that. That could work. We don't have that many building choices, so I think just showing you 2 is probably best. Neither on their own is essential, but you need one of them. Yeah, well, you need one of them the way this is formulated now. We could change it so that you could work around that. You could buy wisdom sludge, or you could just have perks that say level up your adventurers. So if you're not getting these things, then you're occasionally getting the level up choices. Excuse me. Be something that could be a curse, or maybe you can have perks that are really strong but debuff something else. Yeah. I could see there being routes for that stuff. I want to think of game feel, because I think sometimes it makes sense. I was playing Ember Knights for a little while, and Ember Knights had this concept that I really liked, which was like curses that you could cleanse if you beat the world you were in. So imagine something like, I don't remember what they were in the exact game, but imagine something like minus 50% damage, but like 3x the invincibility frames. So for that whole world, you're really, really weak in terms of damage output. But if you can survive the whole thing, they just delete the negative aspect. So you just get the invincibility frames from then on. So it was like a little bit of a challenge. I don't know if that might exist in Skeleseller, but I like the framing of that at least. Learned hashing, but as soon as I see a question, I start to sweat and can't solve. Tips, please. Well, you say I start to sweat and can't solve it. Is it coming from you haven't seen enough questions, let's say with hashing, such that you know what the past solutions were? Are you studying problems when you have failed to solve them to figure out how would I have gone about it? Because I think at any point, you need to look through questions you were given and figure out what was difficult for you. Like, was it a new algorithm? Was it a new technique, I guess, within it? Like, and then how can you identify patterns to make it easier in the future? And then there are some strategies within a particular question where, like, maybe they say, hey, we have, I don't know, 10 numbers in a list and we need to do something. I don't know what. Maybe you could try to trim it down to 3 to see if a pattern emerges. So like cut down your search space, or maybe test it with a sample case or something. So anyway, those are things to think about at least. Risk of rain, where you pick up the lunar items that are really strong but have a debuff, but you can trade it at cleansing pools. Yeah, something like that. I go Deke, play a lot of Gunfire Reborn, and it has those kinds of challenges. They're cool because you get a bonus that has a cost for a while, and if you succeed, you're rewarded. I played Gunfire. I don't remember those, but I played a long enough time ago where I don't remember a lot about the game. Penalties are generally not run enders, although they can be, yeah. Huh. Okay, I like this idea. I think this might just kind of solidify this completely as long as you get your first couple of buildings fast enough. So that's what I'm thinking of for right now. Let's at least write it down in the design. Buildings. You start with one of each shop, and then buildings are purchased for increasing gold costs and are presented in batches of 2 options. So rationale, so buildings will help define which perks are offered, and I want runs to be different so they can't just be outright purchased. The increasing cost is to make sure you don't usually end up with everything. And what else? Is that pretty much it? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and if you aren't offered the farm or pond within the first 2 choices, you'll be offered one of them in your 3rd choice. Or how about this? Let's just say we force the farm or pond to be offered within your first 2 choices. Even then, man, I'm not totally sure about this. Yeah, the farm and pond are the only. The treasure room can also increase your power, though. So maybe just one of those? I don't know. We'll have to test this. So note, the only ways to increase your adventurer's power level is through the farm, pond, or treasure room. We may want to force one of those choices early on, especially if it feels like leveling up is the only viable option. Not having that adds to the challenge and the randomness, right? Suddenly you're forced to think extra carefully about your party setup so you can do it while essentially underleveled. I don't know. So think about this. Imagine if in Risk of Rain you just couldn't find items anymore because you didn't get the item finder ability. Your character couldn't get more powerful. So there are some decisions you could make, but it's like it was just out of purely randomness that you didn't get that. Yeah, you've done that, but you're also like a pro player essentially. So you're used to the challenge of the game. If you're a new player and you're like, what was I supposed to have done there? And someone else just tells you like, oh, you just got unlucky. I don't think that's as fun. With that said, if you can hire more adventurers, that is a way to overcome this. So let's say you got, 5 adventurers when you normally would have only had 2, but now by having 5, you're starting 3 different battles and you're getting a lot more potions. So that could work. But again, we were talking about a scaling cost. So let's say it goes, 50 to 150 to 450, and the potions you're getting are worth like 4 gold a piece. It's like, all right, well, collecting 50, that's not too bad. You collect 13 potions. Now collecting 450, it's like even running 3 parties, it's kind of frustrating. So I'll keep my eye on that. This is definitely questionable. But I think that answers that question at least. So let's go look at these again. How does we haven't done that yet. How does the treasure room work? Is a better way of handling buildings. All of them are necessary. So having you spend a lot of money or get lucky with random choice seems weird. So I think we've answered this question. We can delete 1 from here. We only have what? 26 more questions. That's what all of today's about. So how does the tavern work? Let's go copy this one over and try to figure this out, because I don't really know how this is going to work. So right now, the tavern is just for new workers. You start a quest, you need to collect this many potions. When you do, you get another skeleton. So if I have a bunch of items here and I pop out a new skeleton, that skeleton will go pick stuff up. Does automation matter as much in this mode? And for it to matter would mean that there'd have to be a lot of items. We need to change probably the balance of manual versus automated tasks, such that automation is probably more desirable. And to make it more desirable, rather than getting like 3 items per minute, because you can drag 3 items per minute, you get 300 items per minute. And now maybe of the 300, you can take care of like 50 yourself. So now your workers really matter. Players should be overwhelmed without automation. I think I think the difficulty is going to be, it's going to be balanced for sure. Because like one way we could do this is, let's say you had just like 1 million customers in town. So let's say I do this. So now shop storage doesn't really matter too much. Like let's say I get a couple of potions. I'm going to put these potions in here. They should sell pretty much immediately. Like someone from this wave of customers comes and buys them, right? I put another potion down. Someone just immediately goes and buys it. So like this is a way to make it so that your shop is like almost like an auto purchase. As soon as an item enters, it's just going to get purchased. This looks a little crazy, by the way. We've got so many customers. Oh, this could be a fun event. Spawn like 100 customers each, so they'll just buy one item. I kind of like that. Spawn 10 customers that will each buy one item and then leave. Maybe they all look like the same character. How do we balance manual and automated actions? E.g., if you only have 10 item slots at most, then you can manually handle everything and not need the tavern. So that is one way we can pivot this. We could say the tavern works exactly like how it did. Quests that give workers, and just give you enough items that the workers feel almost necessary. And then quests become infinite. Yeah. So at some point you're going to need to determine, like, do I even do another quest? Because maybe the cost of doing that quest is 300 gold of lost selling, but that extra worker is only a 10% bonus for you. Yeah, I like that idea. Alternatively, the tavern could just cease to exist, and there are perks that come up every once in a while that say give yourself a new worker. Alternatively, both could happen. You could have the tavern, and every once in a while you could just get a perk that says give yourself a new worker. And when you have the tavern, it's probably not worth it, but when you don't have it, it probably would be worth it. Or maybe you feel like you're struggling anyway and you just want to get it. Do I have that written down? Because that's a good idea. Adventurers. Yeah, so workers grant a new worker. Even if the tavern is in the game and offers them, this may still be interesting. Okay, so... Oh man, how do we do this? We need enough items to drop from battles where you feel like you can't handle them all on your own. None of that's really problematic except for that we just don't have space in the shops for them. I guess we could make a whole new town map where shops are just larger. We could do that. It might even be interesting to do that just so that things are a little bit different and so you can tell at a glance if someone is playing challenge mode. Oh, do you want every run to be finishable, or is it acceptable for you that a user can get totally screwed by RNG and basically get forced to lose? So what I haven't formalized this yet, but imagine like ascension levels. So on level 0, there's no extra difficulty. It's just the game mode. On level 10, maybe there's like a lot of small difficulty increasing like restrictions. And then on level 20, there's like a major spike in difficulty. So level 0, yeah, I think it should always be finishable. Level 10 probably should be like 70% finishable. And level 20 should be like 20% finishable or something. I'm making up numbers here. This is just to illustrate that, like, yeah, for the first few runs, it's like, yeah, you make the right decisions, you're probably going to win. Getting non-auto farm perks will make managing the farm harder. Making the auto battler gone would make managing battles another burden. That's true. It's not just items. Although I do wonder if we should have another town anyway. But that's something we should probably think about later. Should we have another town to accommodate this? Maybe it could be a wintry town to indicate you're in challenge mode. Cold equals difficult. We could also make the shops bigger in that town. I wonder how hard it'd be to do this. I mean, drawing out a new town and everything would take a lot of time. But just from a technical perspective, if we just dropped in another environment, I guess we also need to reposition buildings and signs and everything. It'd be doable. If we didn't do that and we wanted more item slots in the shops, I think we just need to make better use of this space. And I think that would be tough. Because a fully upgraded shop right now looks like this. There's like not a lot of extra space to walk around in. So we could add another display like there and maybe try to put them up here too. And we'd get an extra like 10. That might be enough. We could also consolidate some of these. So instead of a block of 4 taking a 3x3 tiles, we could have a block of 4 take 2x2. I wonder how that would look. Let me kind of try to draft this out for a little bit. Let's say we did that and then it has space. So we could put 12 in that space. And then I guess another like 2 here. So we'd have 14. Doesn't really give you a whole lot of extra. Duchesne, thanks for the sub. Welcome in. Put a black rectangle over the entire screen. Starts at 0% opacity every ascension level. And that gives 1% opacity. At level 100. Yeah. You want a new map, like a more compact one where there's no extra space and shops are closer? I think the extra space is fine. Also, shops are closer wasn't really the problem. It was just, what if we wanted to make shops bigger? And we could do it with the current map, by the way. We could just like, this can expand downward a little bit. This can expand to the right. This can expand up. That'd be it. It'd be easy. But, yeah, maybe that's even what we do. I'm not sure. Yeah, we might want to do that for the main game mode anyway. I should write that down. We may want to allow for having up to, say, 20 items in the main game mode anyway. So maybe this is moot. All right, well, what did I just decide? The tavern? Yeah, so the tavern we're going to write down for that. Buildings. The tavern is still a way to get more workers. And we probably make it so that you want those workers more. I.e., I guess I'll just write this. We could flood you with items. Rationale. Quests are especially interesting when you can't just leave the game running because you're foregoing item sales. So keeping them in the game is a good thing. The player already would have learned how the tavern works. And it gives you another sense of growth. And we coded all of this. We coded all of this already. So like, we might as well use it. Here's my prime sub. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy with how this stuff is generally turning out. So this, did we answer everything here? Oh yeah, we might need to start you with extra workers. I didn't write that down. No, we may need to start you with, say, 2 to 3 workers. I'll just say with more workers. So that the baseline is still somewhat automated. Maybe that's just one note. The other note is we could still have a plus worker perk. Or like grant. Yeah, okay. Is everything answered here? Is it a problem that quests take time instead of money? I don't think so. Should the tavern even exist? Is it fun? Yeah, I think so. Maybe the tavern could be a way of getting a specific perk. Yeah, so I think we've answered all of these things. And I think this is pretty solid. Okay, how does the treasure room work? It doesn't do much until you get weapons to turn into keys, but maybe keys can auto spawn in this mode. That could certainly be a perk. I don't see why not. Auto spawn keys every so often. What's for lunch? I have a bunch of leftover food. So either pizza or Thai food today. Also, we made Nutella ice cream. It's pretty good. And it's 4 ingredients. How do you feel about hot sauce? I like hot sauce. I thought we talked about this on your stream. I like very spicy food. I guess hot sauce is not... So I don't have hot sauce on many things. I prefer the food to be sort of inherently spicy, I guess. So hot sauce is like a thing for eggs for me. How about hot sauce Nutella ice cream? I don't think I've ever had spicy ice cream. I guess the closest you could say, and this doesn't really count, is cinnamon ice cream, which is fantastic. This is, for whatever reason, rare. I don't know why it's rare, but it's so tasty. This has got to be like one of the best flavors of ice cream. Yeah. But yeah, Nutella ice cream is pretty good too. A lot of habanero hot sauce from Firehouse Subs. It's so good and pretty dang hot. Firehouse Subs. Oh, is this a chain? I don't think I've ever heard of this. And it's apparently not too far from me. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't buy a lot of hot sauce. Part of the reason why is because a lot of hot sauces have added sugar. And I try to cut down on things I'm adding to things that have sugar in it. So like if the dish just had it in there by default, like if I get pad thai or something that has sugar in it, but like I didn't order it for the sugar, but I added hot sauce. I guess I didn't add it for the sugar, but it's got it. See the treasure room working for late game and applying power buffs to adventurers? You're basically hurting your income to boost your end goal. Well, technically in all the ways you level up your adventurers, you're hurting your income somehow. So what I think is that this should be a viable route alongside the farm and pond. The problem is definitely going to be balancing this stuff, though. It doesn't give skill points. Just power and life. It also only upgrades 1 adventurer at a time. Well, I guess leveling up also only upgrades 1 adventurer at a time. Almost no sugar in any hot sauces unless you do like a sweet one. There's sugar in a lot of hot sauces. I wonder if even like Tabasco has sugar in it. Nutrition facts. Tabasco does not. I got some sauce that has... Let me take a look. Yeah, like this. In 5 milliliters, there's a gram of sugar. This sauce that I had gotten. There's sugar in everything. There's sugar in a lot of stuff. All right. I think the treasure room should work how it works, but we just need to balance it. But I don't think that's an easy task. Also, if you're getting tons of weapons, then the treasure room might be even better. I don't pay attention to the serving size, then don't ever get Tic Tacs. Or actually, you should get Tic Tacs if you don't pay attention to it. Tic Tacs say there's 0 grams of sugar, but they're like 90% sugar, and the serving size is just so small that it doesn't register as 1 gram. It's kind of ridiculous that that's even allowed. So I like the idea of the treasure room, but balancing will be very difficult. If all you have, if you get this early on and you're getting weapons, then you're probably not getting rare keys and you're probably not getting many items. And at some point that's going to feel like a drag, but then you'll get treasure perks. So I think we just don't do anything. We also have randomized loot. Also said we wanted randomized loot. So you can get items from the very first location. Did I write anything here about locations? Yeah, I did. I've been lied to. Yeah. Yeah, products mentioned the thing per 100 grams. I think that's a really good idea. You get the treasure room early and you just hurt yourself, get it too late, you don't get much out of it. No, but you could benefit from getting it early. In fact, I guess there's a meta choice here of, yeah, so is there a problem with the player just not unlocking more buildings so that they thoroughly steer their perks? E.g., get the treasure room early, then get all of its perks and be overpowered. Maybe force a building every so often. Okay, let me write this down. At least for the treasure room design, I think this could be good. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so getting it early is potentially something you feel like you have to do, depending on which other choices you were offered. You're like, oh, I got the enchanter or the treasure room. Like, I'll get the treasure room because the enchanter would have been even worse. Take care, guys. Enjoy your hot sauce covered Tic Tacs. Do you get more items in the challenge mode? Maybe we could have a perk that gives you an active ability to spawn like 10 customers every 10 to 15 minutes. You probably will get more items in challenge mode, yeah. Okay, so let's write down how the treasure room works so far. Where's the design? Here it is, building designs. The treasure room just needs to be balanced so that it's viable alongside or compared to the farm and pond. Rationale, we can offer this from the get-go because loot will be randomized. So you can get items or get weapons even from the forest. Stars need to align to be able to have an economy with an early treasure room, which is a good mechanic. That's where I think we probably need to change the balance a bit. E.g., we lower the default opening time. Well, I had to lower the default opening time anyway to something like 3 minutes. Make keys adjust that time by 20 to 40 seconds. Grant more loot by default. Like we can do this in a way that makes sense. It's just going to be difficult. And then we also need to think, is this considered a late game thing or not? How many perks are there for it? Anything else? Yeah. I want there to be many different routes through a run. So offering the treasure room early should still be viable. At least in some cases. Okay, so what's next? Can you still manually hire adventurers? All right, this is a beefy question. Actually, maybe we should take a break before this. Where I left off, gotta answer this. All right, is it jump time? Is it jump time? It's jump time. Good job, Adam. Okay, so if you want to join, type join in Twitch chat and you can play. I'll be back in a few minutes. Just gonna take a quick break. Hello again. Hey, isn't there a way to jump in a way that makes you not jump all that far? Like if I do L4510. Yeah. So this is something that probably doesn't help often, but you can type in a power parameter afterward if you want to do really low jumps as opposed to very high jumps. So when you're stuck beneath a block, you can use that. But anyway, close the game. We're getting back to game design here. So can you still manually hire adventurers? Can you manually unlock skills? Where do we draw the line for something being accessed through gold or slotted and being a perk? Something to consider is there are like 70 skills in the game. So if you randomize everything, there may be a lot of reading just to understand what to choose from, which probably wouldn't be a good thing. I think it'd be boring to get the same build every time. So maybe skill points are randomly assigned and it's rare you get to assign one yourself. Then re-randomizing skills could be something you buy. But re-specializing is core to the game. Maybe we change which skills are unlocked. Then you may light up your favorite synergy and feel like you can stop there. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. I think that when you would have gotten a skill point, you instead have it automatically assigned to a random skill, even if that... Okay, yeah, I'll write that's what I'm leaning toward. All skills are unlocked by default, but have 0 points in them. And then when you would have gotten a skill point, it gets automatically allocated to a random skill. Skill points can't be removed at will anymore. And any skill points granted through other means can be assigned however you want. So basically what I'm getting at here is imagine this sort of thing. So like here's a spirit caller. Every skill is unlocked by default. We just have 0 points in them. And instead of like when you hit level 2, normally it would give you a skill point, but now it's just going to do something like this. Where it's like, well, it just gave you dual targeting. So now your spirits have a chance to use their abilities twice. You get your next skill point and it just went into this one, your cat spirit, and now gives you more exists and gives you a dodge bonus. So it's like you might not like this build that you have and there's nothing you can do about it. But then maybe you decide to invest in a different character. Maybe there's some way you can buy a re-specialization, but it re-randomizes the skills. So yeah, that's what I'm leaning toward right now. So you might end up with builds that are good. You might not end up with builds that are good, but you could just get more adventurers to compensate for it. So rationale, this reduces the amount of reading and decision making you have to make in what is otherwise a timed mode. There's not an explicit timer, but there's a way to lose. It's a wooden mallet. I like the flavor. This still allows for each run to be a little different. You would get random adventurers with random skills. Should we allow you to get the same adventurer multiple times? I think it could do bad things for the game. Like, what if you got 4 witch doctors? They would be competing with each other for summoning space. It could be kind of interesting, though, and the characters would be randomized a bit. I think it'd be fun as an unlockable thing. What, to be able to get multiple of the same adventurer? I'm not sure. I need to think of how that plays out. There are some technical difficulties right now. The other thing that's potentially difficult with this is that the treasure room currently upgrades an entire character. And if you had multiple of the same character, it would upgrade all of them. Because if it did, that might be a reason for you to get multiple of the same character. Did I write this down? Adventurers. Adventurers you randomize should be able to get multiple copies of adventurers. Are they too powerful? The treasure system is small. Yeah, we have this written down already. Need to think about that. Hey, Interlink. Why not allow the skill allocation but randomize the innate talents and skills? This way players can still make choices based on what they're given instead of getting upset about not getting good characters. So if you randomize pretty much anything here, you potentially increase the learning curve for that character. So let's say you randomize the innate skills. A mage is not really a mage anymore, right? They could be given taunt and heal and some, like, I don't know, rock ability, which maybe is cool. But now in trying to figure out which unlockable skills you need to get, we need to relate them back to those skills that were innate. And not all of them are going to make sense. So like this one, this skill is casting Fireball has a greater chance to inspire mental swiftness. This requires that you have both Fireball and mental swiftness. If you weren't given these two innate abilities, then this wouldn't have any impact. And then this skill is like, it's just Ice Blast. But then this is only benefited by having mental swiftness. So there's a lot of like built-in synergies for the class, and I'd like to keep those synergies. I guess that's the other reason why this is important. The classes were all designed with synergies in mind. I don't think we have to mix that up. Having multiple witch doctors could stack zombies on one space, or just have a second doctor buff an existing zombie. I think it'd just be a downside in that case, and I think that's okay. I don't think all random builds have to make sense. I'm not sure how often you'd want that. Like Spirit Caller especially, you might have a lot of the battlefield get full, in which case you just split up their parties. But then what if you're only offered like 4 Spirit Callers and you're just like, well, I can't win the game now. I don't want it to stop you in your tracks. I take 8 rogues. I think something like that would be cool. I'd like to make it work. Yeah, Boulder. Is the end goal to defeat an encounter, and do you plan to make that a difficult battle or with different variations? No, I think the end goal is going to be accumulate X gold, and it's just over the run. So like maybe the goal is, let's say, 10,000 gold. At any given time, you may have less than 500 gold, and you can still win since it's cumulative. But yeah, I think a gold victory makes a little bit more sense for this game. So that way, there's another decision tree you make. Like you could probably get to 10,000 just in the forest in the roughly an hour you have before you run out of time, I guess. But maybe advancing is actually better for you, and maybe you choose to stop like here. And then these other couple locations, maybe it would have been good for you to advance, but you just never did it, and you still won, or maybe you lost. But if we had you beat a final boss, then I think the only way to do it is to make it through all of these. And I like that idea less, I think. Definitely like the challenge of having to deal with a party that's, yeah, I think if we can make it work, I would like to make it work. The one other consideration here, though, like I said, is let's say you did get 8 rogues or something, or 8 golems, or just some combination of a lot of the same adventure. Now the treasure room is like super powerful because this has a Spirit Caller item in it, right? So now we put a bunch of keys in there, and let me give myself a bunch of keys. Give me a sec. Okay, so now let's just do this. Yeah, so we get 4 each of these items, and it's like, oh man, we just made all of our Spirit Callers like way more powerful, and that might not be a good idea, but maybe that's fun. So I'd like to do that. I'd love to have multiple copies of adventurers to make the treasure room a more interesting decision. It also lets you find even more game-breaking builds. It adds many little problems, though. Like I said, there's some technical ones, but then there's also just a UI problem of like, we got to name your characters different things. There'd be like Rogue 1, Rogue 2. Need to name the characters or like number the characters if you can't name them so that you can differentiate between the ones that you have. We could like palette swap them randomly. Yeah. Why stick to one criterion? The one criterion is just to make it easy for the player. I thought about it. Some board games have many different ways you can win. Some video games do too. I just don't think it's worthwhile. All of Skeleseller is based around selling stuff. So making money be your goal, I think makes the most sense. Like the game is called Skeleseller. The reason why beating a boss in the main mode makes sense is because there was a storyline of like, well, you died due to not having an antidote, so now you have to find an antidote. But in challenge mode, it could just be like, hey, like, here's what I picture the lore being. You were successful, you beat the game, now start a new town. And ideally, the town doesn't look the same, but okay, whatever, maybe it does. And to prove that this town works, you have to make a certain amount of money in a certain amount of time. And if you don't, then your business fails and you, I don't know, get booted out or something. Hey, TJ, how you doing? Yeah, so I don't think we need to change the goal. I think just keeping it simple is the best idea for this. Do they add difficulty modifiers? Probably. I still haven't figured that out yet. What if an end condition was to successfully sell X items that customers were asking for in a certain amount of time? I think we're talking about just different restrictions here. So the way I look at it is if the goal is just make X gold, like everything feeds into the gold system. You battle so that you can find items, you sell the items. You level up so that you can battle faster so that you can get even more items. Like the garbage slime gives you gold. Perks can increase all of this stuff. If we were to say get a specific item, what if that item is like in the very first area and it turns out it's like trivially easy to farm that and you don't even need to level up your adventurers. You just get them to like level 2 and then just send all of your adventurers to the first area and you're like, oh, I got my 200 items and I won. I don't think that'd be as interesting. It just further restricts things, that's all. Whereas make X gold is generic enough where you could potentially win in the very first area, depending on how the game ends up being. But you probably won't. And now you have more decisions to make. It's a bit anticlimactic, just ending on an earned income. We'll need lots of firework animations at the end. Yeah, I need to think about that. Okay, I already answered this. What do we call this mode? Do we need some, if we do just have a money objective to win, how do we make it satisfying when you hit that goal? Maybe we show a meter on the screen indicating that you're close. What about a mode that focuses on meeting customer requirements? Like someone wants a red potion, but you're only battling to get blue. You have to adjust the map and meet their demand. Again, this is all stuff where if we just have the goal be make X gold, then this thing about getting specific items, like the customer desire system already exists. We could just say like when you fulfill a desire, you get 3x the gold. So now instead of being forced to do this, you're just incentivized to do it. So you'll still accomplish your goal that you have. Also, hi, Ufta. I was thinking about how much trouble I had keeping items customers actually wanted in stock and consistently had to manage my stall so those items would be purchased. Yeah, in the current game, you can just ignore it because all it's doing is giving you more money. But in challenge mode, it might be something that happens more rarely, or maybe it gives you more money when it happens. Could the requirement be to rebuild a super story important building maybe? So it only kind of can be because I talked about cumulative gold. So this means that let's say your goal was 10,000. You don't necessarily have 10,000 at the end of the game. You may only have like 10 at the end, but you accumulated 10,000 over that time. So every time you spend money on, let's say, a perk, that gold is somehow also going toward the building. I mean, maybe we could say that. Maybe you're building up something physical in town every time you spend money. Maybe it's just a slime that's getting bigger. I don't know. So after playing 2 hours straight, my review is my index finger pains. Like a lot of things are on index finger. I think dropping anywhere should be on right click. Dropping to shops too, because the keyboard hotkeys start later after getting perks. I know this might sound silly, but did you think of just like letting your workers do all this stuff. So there is a perk that you can get. I know how everyone feels about this, but this perk makes your adventurers transport and stock items. If you were like, I don't really like clicking things, you could just have one less battle going on, and then a couple of adventurers could be acting as workers for you. That might help. Alternatively, yeah, unlocking this sooner would be good. But yeah, thank you for playing. And then one other thing that maybe you knew about, maybe you didn't, but if I grant a bunch of items here, you can just in one motion, I left click to pick up, I drag it over here, and I drop just anywhere near the store, and it lets go. So it's just one click to do this stuff. Well, that's not the right item, but this, there. Yeah. So you don't need to exactly target. You don't need to left click to pick up and then left click to let go, although you can. And you don't need to target that exact thing. You could target anywhere near it. Mentioned by a few chatters in Kit's stream. He's doing a code jam. Yeah. Kevin made that. He worked on Skeleseller. And I saw some of that live yesterday because when Leap Year Girl shared, I tuned in for a bit. Okay, I like this idea. I think this is what I'm going to go with. At least it's a good starting point. There's a lot to code here, though. Adventurers. So skills. All skills are. Oh, let's just copy this. What am I doing? There we go. And then the rationale for this can go here. So adventurers are random. Maybe I'll just write adventurer skills here. Yeah. Adventurers. Adventurers are given to you randomly. Their skills are already random. And having... There is a problem. Like, what if you got 2 clerics or something? They're probably going to be terrible. Yeah, they probably would be terrible. Maybe that just means we need to buff their damage for this mode. Then you just re-roll. Yeah, I guess there needs to be a way to re-roll. Although even then, I guess you'd be steering toward damage. How do you re-roll skills? What if you're given 3 clerics? Maybe you just lose in that case. Although the odds aren't that crazy. It's 1 out of 1,000. Yeah, I don't know. I gotta think about that. Give them an achievement if they win with 3 clerics. Yeah, but then yeah. Then they have to count on there being a 1 out of 1,000 chance it gets hit. The mallet. I think we just don't make adventure choices be totally random. I think we just give you a choice. Like the same roguelike choice. You get 3 options, you pick. So this is probably not how this should be done. So what did I have written here? Can you still manually hire adventurers? Can you manually unlock skills? Something that considers are like 70 skills, blah, blah, blah. If you can manually buy things. Okay. So then I think when it comes to adventurer choices, I don't think you should get stuck with 3 clerics. So we should do a roguelike choice for this and give you a few options from which you can pick. Can't you code it in a way they don't repeat? Yeah, but one of the things I think would be nice is if you could repeat it. So it's then making a way for you to not get stuck with a choice you don't like. Because yeah, imagine if you do a run and it's just cleric after cleric after cleric, and you're like, I don't need more healing. They're not doing enough damage. I'm basically forced to lose. A cheap perk that gives you more options from buying adventures. Yeah, I think we're going to do this, but I still haven't figured out the rest of this stuff. So how do you even hire an adventurer? Is it just a monetary cost, like building a building? Or is it a perk that shows up every once in a while? I think I like this. I think I like this. Yeah. Hey, Matt. You could choose to take a second one? Yeah. Also, we don't even need to give you a non-duplicate option. Just what are the odds that... Okay, so your first... If we only gave you one option, you have a 1 out of 10 chance for any adventure. If we give you 2 choices, then... Or 3 choices, either one of these, then in your first batch, you see 3 out of 10 seen, and you take 1. Now in your second batch, you will have somewhere between 3 to 6 out of 10 seen, and you take 1 more. And then on your third batch, you have anywhere between 3 to 9 seen, and you take 1 more. The point of this is, what are the odds that there is some combination of 3 choices that's really, really bad? And I think it's like next to 0. Right? Because you might be offered a cleric each time, but you're also offered 2 other choices. So yeah, you take like cleric the first time, and you take warrior the second time, and you take, I don't know, some other thing the third time, right? Paladin or something. Like maybe this party sucks, but that's for you to figure out. I think there should be some adventurer perks that change up the game a little bit too. But yeah, I like this idea. It's a monetary cost, just like a building. This seems the best. Seems to be the best, since buildings will already do this, and because we can't predict when you'll want / need another adventurer. Yeah, I like that. And we give you an option, so this just kind of slots into place. So we'll write this down: adventurers, tab all this in, and say adventurer or hiring. Just like with, do we write this here? Buildings are purchased for increasing gold costs. Yeah. So just like with buildings, you hire adventurers for an increasing gold cost, or at an increasing gold cost. Rationale is, oh yeah, and then when hiring, you are offered a choice between 2 to 3 adventurers and can pick one. Only if the missing class at the end is the only viable choice for the existing 2 classes. Maybe you should have some respec available to switch some adventurer. Fire him to get another choice. Maybe. I think if that turns out to be a problem, and this is why no matter what we do here, we have to playtest this. But if in playtesting people are like, 20% of my runs, I just get adventurers that are terrible, I'd be like, okay, this is a problem we need to fix. But if someone says, I know this won't happen in playtesting, but I played 1,000 times and one of my runs, there's no way for me to salvage it. I'd be like, yeah, it's okay. How many roguelike games make it so that literally every single run can lead to success? Probably some. But yeah, I'm sure there are lots of roguelike games out there that, yeah, you just make decisions that aren't the best, or you weren't given the best decisions. There's only so much you can salvage. Apparently in Slay the Spire, there's someone who, I haven't watched this person, but they try to do as many of like the hardest possible run as possible. So they're on Ascension level 20 and they tried beating an optional end boss, and they did like 20 runs in a row or something, and that's like the record now. So for you to do better than that is exceedingly difficult, and like that's okay. And maybe some perks can counteract this. All right, so rationale, we can't let you get stuck with, say, 3 clerics if duplicate adventurers are even possible, which is why you need a choice. And we can't predict when you'll want / need another adventurer. One of the things I'd like to do is somehow have the cost of this go up based on how many perks you've gotten, maybe. That's an idea for the future that we'll have to think about. All right, so what do we still have now? Should we still have a sandbox mode? Should it be in V1? I mean, I don't think... that can be a final question. The idea behind this is that it would be purely casual to complement the base game. All right, so let's ignore that for now. Should Wisdom Sludge unlock its own set of perks? Maybe it's for leveling up adventurers, and you can either level one up randomly or spend more on a specific one. If you felt you did have to address new adventures, how they were offered, do you think it'd be a complex fix versus, say, just adding a fourth choice? Curious about time to fix versus fix accuracy. We need to base it on what the problem actually is. So if we're offering, or if we're allowing for duplicate adventurers, yeah, maybe offering another choice is fine. If we're not offering duplicate adventurers, then well, I guess it could be another choice. It could be that we steer the options you're offered based on how many of them you've already chosen. So getting 3 rogues is possible, but really unlikely. Getting the 4th one is impossible. You can only have like 3 of an adventurer, let's say. So I don't know. We can do a bunch of things. It all depends on what the problem is. So Wisdom Sludge, how should this work? So let's say you're playing the game. You've got, let's say, 4 of these adventurers. Picking which one to level up, I think should be on you. Like, I don't think you should just have a random level up button. I think that would not be fun. Yeah, I think we should let you steer this. Let you steer the level ups with Sludge, just like in the base game. It probably wouldn't be fun to have random level ups, especially because it would, on average, lead to your party all being the same level. There's a perk for selecting a level? Oh, as in it's random by default and you get a perk that allows you to choose? Yeah, I agree. I think that's pretty run defining. I think just letting you steer it is probably fine. Also, unless it's shown that this is bad, this takes 0 code to do because we already have it in the game. So we should probably just stick with it. And we really need to think about how long it's going to take to do this stuff. So leveling works just like it does in the base game. You choose which adventurer to level up using Sludge. Rationale. Keep it simple, stupid. Okay, next up. What do we add for risk and reward? There should probably be optional content that you can choose to do, but maybe you don't complete it or it costs you a lot to attempt. I don't think we need to determine this ahead of time. I think if we don't do anything on this path, that the game will still be fun. And if we add in whatever it is that this thing's talking about, that it could be more fun, but it's not like it's going to drastically change the V1 vision of the game. So I think we just leave this for later. Maybe I'll just say questions for much later. Or maybe I'll just put this in the ideas section. Yeah, that's probably best. Where is the ideas section? There it is. Yeah, there. Great. Done. Don't care. All right, next up. What do achievements look like? They can be challenges. This is, again, something we don't really need to answer right now. We can put this in the questions for later section. We don't even need to answer this in the design document. Achievements, I think, I've kind of mentioned this before. I think players are pretty good at identifying problems, but they're not necessarily good at identifying solutions. I think achievements, players are pretty good at identifying what achievements should be. Like, oh, hey, wouldn't it be fun if you did have a beat the game with 3 clerics? Like, yeah, cool. Sounds good. So I don't think we need to do this at all. We can probably just lean on the player base for achievement ideas. Yeah, so I'm not going to answer that now. So would you ever want more than 4 adventurers? They can potentially be workers, they could fish, or they could collect items in different areas, but level ups could be hard to come by. Unless you get 8 adventurers, it may not feel like it's worth it. Strategic things could be up to the player. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. Maybe there's a perk that removes the adventurer limit for battles. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Do I have that written there? Unlimited battles. Unlimited battle windows. No adventurer limit. You can send any number of adventurers into a battle. Maybe we limit this to 7 or 8 just to make sure. Oh, wait. This might break the spirit caller. You have some room for summons. Maybe we just increase the limit from 4 to 5. Note, if we code this, Make sure the spirit collar doesn't break. I think we assume the spirit collar is going to work. So yeah, we need to do something about that. So do I need to write this down? That you can only get like 4 adventurers. So per battle limit, we'll leave it at 4. This may make the player not want to get a 5th or 6th adventurer if they can't fully support another party. But we'll leave that to the player. Plus, adventurers can act as workers or fish or fight in lower level areas. Yeah, I think it's fine. Okay, so what's the next question? Should the game modify itself in negative ways? I'm just going to bump this down the list for now. I don't want to answer that yet. I don't think that's super important. I think the important stuff is still stuff like the locations and duplicate adventurers. So you split the game into a start, middle, and end. What do they all look like? Let's bump that down the list too. We'll eventually get back to these. Oh, questions I had to bump. Here it is. Player perception. That's both of these. Where did I put the other question? Huh. I bumped it down the list, but I don't know where I put it. Yeah. Huh. Hey, Perfect Alibi. How have you felt about your progress for day 185? You mean just this one day or everything leading up to here? Because for this day so far, it's been very good. I'm seeing this come together and I'm feeling good about it. What the thing, okay, I'm just going to put this out there. The thing I'm feeling really, really bad about right now is I think we can do justice to this mode, but I think it's going to take a lot of time. And I'm trying to release the game this year and ideally not like December 30th, you know. Overall, I think it's been good. I think I've kind of proven to myself that the process works. Like iterate, make small changes, see what players think about it, keep testing things out. Paid DLC incoming. I'd love to avoid that. So anyway, that's the only thing I'm feeling bad about right now. Is just all of this represents work. I didn't even finish the other work. Yesterday, I spent some time on this and I also spent some time coding some stuff. So I've gotten the to-do list now down to all of this, which is not too bad. It's like a page. So yeah, I completed a bunch of other items. And actually one of them I showed in the game. I just didn't call it out. If you get a treasure chest now, it shows you the icon for the item that you get. So it says inside is a Golem's Enchanted Rock Shard. And now we're going to get cloaks and brooches as well. And if I were to buy another one of these things and stick in some different keys here. So yeah, you can see this. You see this change in real time and with the item types that you get. So I think this is pretty neat. Let's put in one more of these. Yeah, so now we're going to get 40 items out of this. And now we get, what, 80? So if I open this chest, it's just going to spew a bunch of items onto the ground. We don't even have enough workers. Let me do that. Wow. Crazy. Now watch the level ups roll in. Warrior's going to go crazy here. Level 5. Level 6. That wasn't too crazy. I guess because only dropped 12 of each item. What's this one got in it? 18 items. Blam. Oh, there's another thing about the treasure room. I expected it to be something you unlock later in the game. But if you unlock it early in the game, it's going to really lock up your workers. Because they have to walk so far. Whew. Okay, well anyway, let's keep going. So what was the next question? How do we expose multiple save files? That's a coding question. I don't think we worry about that for right now. Because I also don't think this is going to be that hard to do. Figure out how we'll expose multiple save files in the UI. Yeah. All right, next up, how can we just give you completely random perks at some point? Without that, you're only ever steering, which I don't think should be the only way to get perks. Well, one way is you have a choice of 2 random perks bundled into one option. So imagine something like this. You get 3 options, and they are plus 20% income, and I'm just making things up, 10% potion drops, and then you see 2 random perks. So you could choose this, or you could choose this one. And this is going to turn into maybe better things for you, maybe worse things for you. That's one way of doing it. I don't think that's very fun. Another way is that this can be a reward for beating bosses. You just get a random perk. How many bosses are going to be in the game? How many bosses will be in challenge mode? I like the idea of getting these from beating a boss, but I also want this to potentially modify your run at the beginning. Maybe every time you beat an area for the first time. Every time you beat an area for the first time. That would encourage you to want to progress further. Hang on one second. Okay. We just got a delivery. Watching you enjoying the finished product. Yeah, finished. I like the treasure thing. Oh, maybe that's what you're talking about. I thought you were talking about the roguelike thing. Okay, I kind of like this. I think it's pretty neat because that means you get your very first one when you beat the forest for the first time. Maybe we surface this as free perk and you click it and it shows a single option that you could choose to skip. Yeah. And the free perks could be modified too. I like that. I like that. And how about we do it the first time you beat an area? Because if we do have, depends on how many perks we end up with. But if we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then multiply them all by 2, so 16. If we do have 16 locations, that'd be 16 extra perks. That would be quite a lot. And then I guess later ascension levels or something could say, oh, you only get this option on your every other one, and then every third one, or there's like a 20% chance that you get this at the end of a thing. Should you have majors and minor perks? Gift majors and purchase minors? Maybe. I'm still not totally sure, but I like this idea. So I'm going to write this down in the design. Perks, or like gifted perks. Sometimes you should be gifted a perk. This can show as a perk choice with only a single option. Meta perks can potentially increase that number of options. You can be gifted a perk every time you beat a location. And maybe beating a boss could gift a more powerful perk. Rationale, I don't think you should always be given a choice. Because then you're always steering. Sometimes the game should help dictate your build. And by tying this to beating locations, it will incentivize you to progress in the map when you otherwise could just stay where you are, because The only objective is to get enough gold. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. Let's go back down to questions. So is it interesting to get perks like plus 20% potion drop rate alongside more powerful perks? I generally don't like tiny changes to gameplay. I'd rather have perks that are impactful at any given point. Also, do those perks feel like an interesting decision? This is the classic roguelike problem in my mind. You want a lot of options. You want options to be impactful. And you want everything to be balanced. It's hard to do all of those things at once. So you can have a few options that are impactful and balanced. You can have a lot of options and they can be impactful, but they're just not balanced at all. I don't think balance is incredibly important for this game because it's single player and it's kind of just intended to be fun. So I do want there to be options. The impactful part of it, I just don't think it should be something so incremental that you don't feel the change. So I think that's it. I think this can be interesting. I think as long as it changes your run in some way. So I guess as one of the final questions we should ask, are all perks at least somewhat interesting? They should all be felt in their impact to the game without necessarily breaking things. Think of the original perk designs, perk/skill designs, and how they all change by large enough percentages. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think you can have everything balanced. Seems like a square of option count, option impact, option balance, dev time. Yeah, dev time I don't consider in terms of balance from a player perspective at least. But yeah, that does need to be considered too. Cases where they're wanted and cases where they're worthless. Yeah, like if you have a largely potion focused build and you get the armor perk, you might feel it when you finally get an armor, but it might not be great for your build. Okay, next up, how do you lose? I like the idea that customers offer less and less money, but I think we need a definitive you lose screen so the players know to move on to the next run. Maybe it says Skeleton failed. What would trigger this? Income dropping below a threshold? Maybe you're renting land and the rent keeps going up? Yeah, I don't know what we should do for this. So how do you lose? So the win condition is accumulating enough money. You failed, stupid. You deserve to be a skeleton. The win condition is accumulating enough money. I think losing would have to be based on, yeah, your rate of income falling. Which would essentially be at any minute in the game, you have a target income rate. Oh, you know what we could do for this? We could represent this as a meter, as a money meter. At any given point, you should be a certain distance along it. So it starts like this. And maybe green is what you've accomplished so far. And this, I'll put like a yellow thing here. Or maybe I'll put this here. Okay, so this is like the dumbest way I could have represented this, but it works. So this is equal to the point you need to be, I guess if you're to the left of this point, you lose. And then green is, this is how much money you've gotten. And this is your goal, 10K gold or something. Yeah, so does this make sense? Probably makes sense. You've gotten this far along. And as time goes on, the thing moves to the right, and you need to keep up. If it's money for both winning and losing, wouldn't it have low tension? Is it better when you can be close to losing, to both winning and losing near the end? Well, that's kind of what the system does, right? Like this thing will just keep advancing to the right. And if your income doesn't keep up with it, basically, then you lose. But all you need to do is collect 10,000 gold. This thing is essentially the timer for that. We could just literally have a timer. We could just say you have 1 hour remaining. But then I guess you could still win sooner. Yeah. Could be time-based, but then a later difficulty setting could be added that causes negative income. Yeah. I want to be careful with negatives for this because I think just anything that's negative, I think being framed as a positive is a good thing. So instead of a negative thing where we're like, oh, on average, you're going to lose 2,000 gold, we could just say, just make it cost 2,000 more gold. And now it feels better that when you're advancing. So yeah, this could work. What do you've got? Functionally, this is what I want. How do I surface this to the player? I think a timer is probably the easiest. We could have it be a day counter. You have 100 days to win. But I mean, that implies that days are passing. I don't think we really need that. We could just have it be real time. Maybe it's a holiday and the end of day causes no customers. That's kind of interesting. Like this is all taking place over the course of one day. It's like you have 1 day to build up a town in a new region. And earn X gold. If you can't do it, well, if you can't do it, we say customers will stop. That wouldn't make sense why you lose. Wouldn't you just be like, oh, I'll just wait another day and then customers will come back? Maybe you had a bet with a skeleton friend. They're like, okay, you only did this because you had, I don't know, you had the perfect set of circumstances. You come to my set of the woods, my neck of the woods, and I'll give you a real challenge. We could have nighttime approach, like the whole world gets a little bit darker as time goes on. But still, why wouldn't you just run your town the next day? You owe to the king this much. Oh, like someone. Oh, like it's like an incubator, right? it's Skel Y Combinator. You're an investment like mechanism for someone. Go prove that you can earn enough income by the end of X time, or else I don't know, they can't kill you again. You've already died. It's a remote location with tourists only visiting for this 1 day. I'm not sold on any of these yet. I think it's got to be something about like you're doing this as a business now. I like the idea that you're doing this as a business and not because you're trying to find an antidote. It's like, can I replicate the success of Skeletown 1 Yeah, I kind of like that. By the way, what is the ideal run length? If we could just set it, I think 1 hour is decent. You can save the game and quit at any time. You can save and quit at any time and come back later. A playtest question for sure. Yeah, maybe we should just let playtesters just pick a time, like 45 minutes. Well, no, actually, we probably can't do that. We probably need to balance it for one time. We just need to know what that time is. Because I think half an hour would feel way too frantic. Like, or every decision is just super impactful. I wonder what the average, I would say the average is probably an hour, just off the top of my head, for other roguelike games. Like Dead Cells average winning run length. Between 50 minutes to an hour. All right, Ember Knights, 45 minutes. Slay the Spire, 64 minutes. So they're all in the like 40 to 64 range right now. What else? Gunfire Reborn, 1 to 2 hours. That's solo though. What's the rest of this? 48 minutes for fastest. 60 to 70 minutes for a 2-player session. Yeah, so they're all hovering around like 50 to 60 minutes. I think we can aim for something in the 45 to 55 minute range then. Based on looking up Dead Cells, Gunfire Reborn, Slay the Spire, and Ember Knights, it's in the 40 to 60 minute range. Yeah, Pressel. I think aiming for about 45 to 50 is probably good. We could even have an easy mode that tacks on the extra 5 minutes. Playtesting will make this clear. Appleseed. Okay, so let's write that down. I think that's pretty good. Where is it? Objective. Acquire X gold cumulatively within Y time. Based on other roguelike games, Y should probably be 45 to 50 minutes. And X is based on whatever we think you can accumulate in like that time. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. All right, but that doesn't answer this question. So what we're saying is that this 45 minutes represents, I guess, a day. So you were tasked with like rapid expansion of a town. Yeah. I like that. You're experimenting with business ideas. Experimenting with business ideas. I want to test your metal in a bunch of different conditions. Can you like rapidly prove a business model? Fail fast and move on. Something like that. Yeah. I kind of like that idea. Hey, Gazelle. Does that have a keep playing option? We'll hit the higher difficulty. That I'm going to not do from the get-go just because it's easier to make it stop than it is to make it keep going. But that could be a thing in the future. Okay, so I like this as the lore reason for this at least. So lore, after you've beaten the main game, you have a steady stock of antidotes and have accomplished your goal. Now you want to expand Skeleton to other regions, but you need a surefire way of like franchising, I guess I'm going to say. This is not final. This is just the starting point. You decide to experiment with different business ideas under different conditions to see if you can rapidly prove your business model. The goal is to fail fast, hence the time limit. Okay, yeah. Okay, I like that. Let's Go back to questions. Should there be occasional events? I think this can always happen later. Maybe I'll just put like a supplemental design. We haven't designed it. I think that's probably fine. Supplemental design decisions. Note, these are all things that can be tacked on later. Occasional, I guess we could just write this in the ideas thing, huh? That's the whole point of that. Yeah, that's kind of stupid. Okay, let's just put that there then. Ideas. Occasional events. These could change up your decisions or reward you for something. Or just be a fun thing to add to your run. Yeah. Are we getting a Netflix special on your journey? Has that happened for any indie game dev? I'm trying it currently, and it's incredible how easily you can make stuff. Yeah, it's really neat. Okay, nice. We've answered that. All right, what is the lore? Maybe you're starting a new Skeleton. Oh, I kind of like that. The Skeleton 1, Skeleton 2. We could even name these Skeleton X, where X is 1 plus number of runs you've done. Surely Skeleton 476 will work. Not? Has it been done? Huh. I didn't write rationale for this. Rationale. We need something to explain the timer. And then we'll show you business failed when you... Okay, when losing, we'll show business failed. Not sure, just guessed. Yeah, I could see it being the case, but I don't know if one was made. Should there be a way to start with X random perks to help you steer your run? Okay, this is just an idea. It doesn't need to be done right now. Where's the ideas section? Here it is. Allow for starting the game with X random perks. Fortune 500 status. Be hilarious if this whole game is playing out and it turns out it's actually the modern world the whole time. And this is just in the woods somewhere in the, you know, somewhere in the US. And you pan over the camera and it's like Google headquarters and whatever else. We're in the Fortune 500 list. Some very small programming experience and knowledge. I just created a password generator for myself with sick graphic design in 10 minutes. Always could have coded this myself. Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting to see what can be done. How do we balance manual and automated actions? If you only have 10 item slots, you can handle everything manually. Should we have another town to accommodate this? Maybe it's a wintry town or anything. Yeah, I think the way we balance this is by making it so that you do lean on your automation pretty heavily. That there's only so much you can contribute, that you essentially just feel like another worker. Yeah, I'll just write this down. Automation for, well, I guess it's written in the tavern, right? Yeah. The reason why workers need to be valuable is because you would otherwise hate the tavern and feel pressured to keep up with everything manually. Why is it that it creates possibilities for cybersecurity issues? So it's kind of the same with anything. Imagine you're doing a house project and I don't know, you just like nail a bunch of things into a wall and you don't care if you're hitting like cables or something. So now it's like by not having the knowledge of how you're supposed to do something, you don't know what could even go wrong. So now maybe whatever, there's like moisture getting into your place and you create a bunch of mold. And then it's not until a year later that you find that mold and you're like, uh-oh. And then you have like a, you know, gigantic project to now fix it. I think it's the same thing there. Like an AI is doing all this stuff and the AI isn't super cohesive with how it does it. So maybe there's I don't know, a server that's exposed and it doesn't validate user input. In fact, Amazon even had this problem a long time ago. You went to some like, I don't remember exactly how it worked, but imagine something like this, amazon.com/ some product code / buy, and then the cost was like right in the URL. So apparently some people could just set it to negative or zero. It's like, imagine that sort of mistake existing where you could just change the cost of an item by changing the URL. And now imagine that it's not changing the cost of something, which is only going to cost you money, but it's like you accidentally opened up access to your machine. Maybe they configured something with the wrong permissions. So yeah, it could be fraught with those errors. And generally, vibe coding tends to be, hey, someone who doesn't know how to code or doesn't want to code is making a bunch of stuff. So it's like you end up producing so much code that you can't really validate it anymore, not without gaining a bunch of knowledge or having other AI do it and trusting them. So let's say if I, for fun, created some fun project and wanted to end up releasing it without the knowledge to see these problems myself, how could I security proof it? Is it hiring someone? Yeah, it's pretty much only hiring someone at that point. Yeah. Again, it's kind of the same thing with like, let's say I just decided, hey, I'm going to go make a new kitchen in my apartment. And I do that thing where I just like poke a hole out to the to the open air and water gets in or animals get in or something. Like, how would I know that I did it correctly if I don't have the knowledge to know what I did wrong in the first place? It'd have to involve some other person or entity. I don't think you'd be able to easily get a definitive answer though. The way that security researchers tend to do this stuff is a combination of some like code inspection, like fuzzing tools where they just try a whole bunch of different things, maybe like analyzing attack surface in a particular way. So generally, the way you might do this is you would, what happened to my mouse? Okay, there we go. The way you might do this is maybe you're making something like Twitter, let's say. So you think of like, where can the user do something themselves? And you'd analyze all of your APIs for like, what are the inputs to those APIs and then how do they get used? But that's not your entire attack surface. There's also pretty much like, where is any server exposed to the public? So you can't have a website like Twitter and not expose anything to the public. You need to have a web server. You need to have APIs that then your clients are calling into. And some of these may have been accidental. Like, what if you have a database that's just accessible to the public and someone guesses your username and password? Like, that is possible. You can do those things. It's not a good idea, obviously. So you'd have to analyze what is your attack surface of your application, your infrastructure, and then also potentially any human involved, right? Think of social engineering. You yourself know your own password to your computer. Someone could get that password out of you, or they could find your password manager, or could find a post-it note on your monitor or something, or they could take your computer and then run a whole bunch of tools offline. So yeah, unless you know all of these things that can happen, and even if you do know them all, it's still difficult to prevent against them. Then yeah, AI is not going to help. Industry of code auditors that will start up specifically to audit code bases generated by AI tools. Yeah, I could see that happening. And I guess the difficulty with any of this stuff is knowing when you've found everything. Because right now, even in the world where professional software developers are making things, you don't know that you found anything. And the term for this is a 0-day attack where no one knew about it. It's not like the company is like, well, this was a long time coming. It was like, this is a novel attack that we did not know how to prevent against and may not even have detected that it happened in time. That's okay. Then I'm done talking about this after this, but that's, I guess, the final part of this. You sometimes don't even know you have a security flaw. And with monitoring and logging and auditing, you can figure out what went wrong. But imagine that you have a server online and you accidentally exposed everything to the world. They have your secret keys. They have access to your database. if you don't have insight into that, you might never realize it. So now your customers are happy they're buying stuff, but someone just stole all of their email addresses and passwords and like hacked into their banks as a result of that. And it's like, whoops, you might not even be aware. They'll never tell you, hey, we hacked you. A guy made a really big app in the fitness niche with, as far as I know, vibe coding, and that app is doing huge numbers. Yeah. Yeah. And who knows? I mean, it all depends on what kind of vulnerability there is. It's one thing to have like buttons overflow the text and you can't read everything correctly and like, okay, that's a bug, but it's not like I stole a bunch of personal information level of impact. So a lot of this stuff, I think one way to minimize this at least a little bit is just don't even have a server. Like let's say you're making a fitness tracking app and it's just saving to your own phone. It's like, okay, that kind of minimizes the risk a lot. Yeah, oopsie. Did very extensive attacks trying to break your stuff, not so much watching your code outside of giving guidelines. Yeah, sometimes you don't need code to be able to hack something. And a lot of that is what penetration testing is, and what a lot of these like capture the flag style hackathons can be is, hey, we've hidden a code on this machine, figure out how to get into it. And they leave like little hints sometimes, but you don't have access to the code usually. All right, so how do you balance this stuff? We wrote this down. I think having another town would be a good idea eventually, but I think it's a lot of work to do. We could use the winter tile sets and make a whole new town. It's a lot of work, but it would allow us to visually distinguish challenge mode. Hey, James. Just had my mid-year review at work and I went for a promotional lead developer. Nice. Congratulations. Also, even if the promotion doesn't happen, congratulations anyway. To even be up for the promotion is a big deal. Also, the way I look at these things is if you're up for it now, it's pretty much just a matter of time before it happens. Because if the company's even giving you the opportunity, it means they value you. Oh man, it's been like 4 hours. Okay, I should probably get lunch pretty soon. How many more questions do we have? Why are there this many questions? What is going on? All right, how many are there here? We have 73 lines of questions that we have to get through. Yeah. I think the most important thing is still around the duplicate adventurers and ascensions. I think those are the most impactful things. Most impactful questions are around duplicate adventurers and ascensions. Turns out making a game is a lot of work. Yeah, but even this, I know this is like a game-changing feature, but I'm guessing this is going to be like at least a month of work. Which, this is why I said my biggest frustration is around the timeline of this. Let's say I was just done with the design. Design, done, cool, we're finished with that. And I say coding starts now. And it's going to take a month. We are now at August, what, 23rd? Yeah, August 23rd before I can do anything else that already still needed to be done. And what are the odds this takes 1 month, right? Like play testing and everything. So I don't know. I'm a little stressed. This is the entire reason I came up with that bricklaying mentality thing, though. This. And I just need to think about that in terms of we have to do the design of this. There's no way to skip this process. You can't just start coding. I don't know half the things I'd be doing. So we need to design this. Then we need to do some amount of coding, some amount of playtesting. Hopefully it lands pretty well. Just vibe code the rest of it. You know, there is something to be said about prototyping with AI at a much faster pace. Like I do kind of wonder if I could just give AI this set of stuff and have it do even little bits of this. Hey, make a UI like this, or I don't know. But I haven't done any of it so far with that. Like I haven't ever said just go make a UI with these requirements. Maybe it does a good job, maybe it does a terrible job, and I have no experience making it do a better job. So I've just been doing it all by hand. Okay, what time is it? It's 12:07. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's lunchtime. I really should take a break. I don't want to just keep barreling through more questions. So I'll probably take about an hour. I'll do that. And then we'll go from maybe like, yeah, 1:10-ish p.m. until, what's the latest I can push this? Maybe like 4 p.m. is just keep churning through questions. Yeah. I don't know if 3 hours will be enough. But that's okay if this bleeds into tomorrow a little bit. I just don't want the design to keep going forever, because I already know for sure that there are going to be improvements to this system. So we're not trying to get everything 100% from the get-go. We're trying to get like 85%. Kept designing challenge mode. Things are going well, but it's taking a while. Yeah. Ooh. Okay, well, thank you all for watching. I'll be back in about an hour. If you want to try the game, if you want to join Discord, there are some links. I don't generally raid out at lunchtime just because I'm going to be back in an hour anyway. So I hope to see you again very soon. And if not, have a good rest of your day. And we'll do some design stuff in a bit. See ya.